dear traveler, remember this: whatever planar belonging to the planar, for the time being, are only realities. However, if we mistake the shadows for realities, we find ourselves confusing the upward progress of the ego as an elevation of consciousness. Thus, beware of oneself when you step beyond the veil.
All right, tonight we are having some astrological interference. And as I said before, we are going to make sure to buy a new computer. I am literally going to do this the day after tomorrow as soon as I can. I'm probably going to go on Amazon after the show and check it out. Yeah. It's time for an upgrade anyways. You know, we bought Sheree a $3,000 computer back in 2014 or 2015?
2015.
2015. $3,000 computer. And the damn thing is obsolete right now.
Yep.
And we just bought her a new one for Christmas.
Yep.
So she's got this new badass gaming computer and all this, so she can play Skyrim.
Yeah, and it's actually a really, really nice computer, and I love it so much more because the other one was like this huge beast. It was an ROG. I don't know if you guys know what that is, but it's Republic of Gaming, and he got it for me so I could play games on it. But even it was a 2014 model, and even now it's not even 2018 and it's already obsolete. I can't play the games I want to play on it.
Right.
So.
Somebody asked if the video card is getting hot. And, I really think it's a Windows update, because what I did during the break is I reverted Windows back to a previous version. And hopefully that clears it all up. I mean, I don't know, but I know the Windows updated the other day, and it's been bugging the shit out of me for the past 3 weeks. It's like, we want to update. I'm like, nope, ignore. And then finally, after you ignore it so much, then it says, okay, you will update either now, 2 hours from now, or 3 hours from now. And I'm like, well,
I don't know what I'm going to be doing.
I might as well do it now. And since then, that's just what happens. But it's okay. Well, let's move forward and see if we can at least put together a nice clean archive for everybody out there. And if you're listening to the archive, you probably haven't noticed any of this stuff, but we have been going through some hell tonight.
Oh my God.
So but it's okay, because that's what we do. We're going to soldier through it. So we were talking about solar deities, solar messiahs, and AI control over the matrix, as we always do here, but so many new revelations start to pour in, especially around this particular time. Now, I do want to go downstairs and grab something really quick. Actually, can you do this, Sheree? Mm-hmm. Can you grab the thing that Nick sent us?
Yes.
Yeah, I meant to do this during the break, but because of that,
because of the
So grab that for me real quick. People have been showing so much love that it's incredible. As I mentioned in the first hour of the broadcast, my mother had passed away 7 years ago on this day. And Nick Zervos, he's Greek also, and he has a Greek mama. And his Greek mama made us kurabiedes and some other stuff that we received in the mail just yesterday. And I wanted to just take a moment and just say, thank you so much. That was so meaningful. And it helped to bring back a part that was missing from my heart. So, Efkaristo, Parapoli. I really, really, really appreciate it. And much love out there. Robert W. Sullivan actually sent something that's freaking really cool. I'll ask Sheree to grab it. It's on her desk. But I think this is like some insider Freemasonic stuff here. And yes, here it is.
Here you go.
Thank you. So I wanted to show everybody. Can you grab what Robert sent us too?
Yes.
So Nick sent us awesome. Let's see. Oh, it comes in a little tin too. I didn't want to open it until Christmas. So let's see. How does the tin open? Does it turn? I'll let you do this. But I wanted to say thank you to Nick, first of all. Now, Robert sent me this Fraternal Review book, The Force and the Light, the Star Wars mythology and Freemasonry. And I don't know where this comes from. It's a Southern California Research Lodge, which tells me that this is like some inner Masonic stuff that only Freemasons can get. I don't know if he was supposed to send this. I don't know if it's part of the lodge library or what, but I do definitely want to go over this. For instance, in a galaxy far, far, far away, editor's word, we were called crazy when a year ago the suggestion in publishing an issue on the Star Wars mythology and Freemasonry was tossed around, just like the visionary writer-director was called crazy for thinking a little universe exploration movie was worth filming back in 1976. 300 years ago, Masonry's 300 years old this year, by the way. Other visionaries and groups, Freemasons, were also called crazy for deciding to form the United Grand Lodge of England, with a foresight that the craft would be more influenced by banding together to form one unified body. Why have we both survived? Why are they both still powerful icons in Western culture? And it kind of goes on and on and on. So I haven't had a chance to open it up yet and really look at it, but I do want to show you a couple of pictures. So we have like the Force and Freemasonry with Yoda right there, which is really cool. The Three Great Lights of the Jedi Council. And if you missed the show with Robert W. Sullivan, I asked him about the Three Great Lights of Freemasonry, which he talked about one of the great lights of Freemasonry being the Holy Bible, which kind of makes me go, bleh, but it is what it is. And then it's got some other stuff with Robert in here too. So I wanted to take a moment and just say thank you so much to Robert W. Sullivan. And, it came in this little plastic thing here, which makes me feel like this needs to stay
in the plastic.
Yeah. But we'll go over it all. Oh, it's got Final Word by Albert Pike on the back. So we'll go over it all, and then we will report back to you the secrets of Freemasonry in relation to the Star Wars episode here. So, I should have asked Robert, first of all, is this something I can share on air, or is this like a under the table kind of gift, like, here, check out some secret work here. But it does come from the Southern Library Research Lodge, which I've never heard of, but we'll see how that progresses.
So Nick Zervos' mom. Nick Zervos and his mom sent us these.
Oh, cool. Yeah, that's exactly the way my mother makes them. Yeah, I would eat one now on air, except for I won't be able to talk afterwards because of the powdered sugar. But Nick, dude, Afghanistan. Yeah.
Thank you so much. Those are amazing.
Yes. All right, now let's get back to the show here. And we were talking about Solar Messiah, so much more. Maybe we can flip the topic now. What do you think? And we have a ton of listener questions to go over. Really, really, really awesome questions. If you want to send questions in, send them to info@beyondtheveilmedia.com, or you can post them in the chats. The Facebook chat and the YouTube chat, it's kind of hit or miss because we try to keep an eye on it. If you tag us and say, hey, Beyond the Veil, and then it'll show like a big Beyond the Veil in red, then we can see it a lot better as the chat's going by. Facebook as well, we get so many comments on Facebook that I try to read them all, but it's hard for me sometimes. And there's a couple of days out of the week that I'm just like, no computer, no nothing, I'm disconnecting completely. And those days, things start to pile up on me on those days, including emails, including requests for the Ayahuasca guide, et cetera, et cetera. So forgive me for not answering everything immediately, or sometimes there may be comments that I love that I just haven't liked or anything like that. I have to maintain the balance. That's what it's all about. I can't be on the computer 24 hours a day. I used to be, and when I was a freaking utter mess, and I can't be away from the computer 24 hours a day either, because if I do that, then I can't get any work done. So balance. It's we were talking about the other day, dividing our time 24 hours in a day, 8 hours for spirituality and refreshment, 8 hours for rest and relaxation, and 8 hours for our work and our job, et cetera, et cetera. And those 8 hours for spirituality could be helping one another, could be meditating, focusing on yourself, could be spending time with friends and family, and doing, just spreading good energy. 8 hours spreading good energy per day, 8 hours working, 8 hours sleep and refreshment. And it creates a very, very balanced consciousness. And that's what I found once I started putting this into practice. So,
Yes, definitely. I think there's no other time of the year that it's as evident as the winter solstice and the following 3 days. Um, that's the best time, the absolute best time of the year to realize all of this and to actually look at yourself, look at your life, and look at yourself, look at your at where your consciousness is being invested, and especially since we had Mercury in retrograde for the past, I think it's like 3 weeks or something like that. For the past 3 weeks or so, we've had Mercury in retrograde on top of all of this stuff going on with the Sun and Saturn. And so this year was even more about looking back on the past year, and it gives you a little bit of time to quiet your mind and really think about where you're investing your time, what you're investing your time in, and questioning whether that's a good thing or not, and figuring out, where is my consciousness going to be invested in for 2018? What is my focus? What is
that's a great point.
My life going to be like a year from now? Am I going to look back and say, man, 2018 was wasted? Just like, I'm sure a few of you out there are thinking, oh man, I could have done so much more with 2017. There's a few missed opportunities. This year, you could train yourself to not miss those opportunities and to be better at dividing your time wisely. So.
Very well said. We typically don't focus on that as we move into a new year. Instead, we're told, what's your New Year resolution? Now, my New Year resolution is to lose weight, or my New Year's resolution is to, do this or do that, et cetera, et cetera. But we don't think about it on a consciousness level. And when you really think about it, now that you said this, the thought that it provoked is all of these New Year resolutions basically set us up for failure because we're not addressing the core issue, which is consciousness. You change your consciousness, then all your New Year's resolutions, they start to manifest themselves because you're manifesting it first in the mind instead of just saying, okay, it's something that I need to do. For example, I've lost a few pounds recently, and I feel that over the next 6 months, I'm going to lose a whole lot more and get back on track to where I was before. And what I started doing is playing VR and actually like moving around every day and tricking my body into playing a game while at the same time working out and moving around. And, that's just one step in order to get to the gym. I hate the freaking gym, though. It's like you're sitting there like a freaking gerbil on a machine. I never really understood how people do that. They're just sitting. But, I was thinking with these VR systems, like if they put these in gyms and actually had like the treadmills and stuff like that, and as you're going on the treadmills or the stair climbers or whatever, you're actually playing some kind of game within the VR realm. It tricks the brain into believing that you're playing a game instead of doing a workout. And so I think that would be huge, huge, huge for humanity and for health. Now, you got to keep that separation between the virtual reality and yourself, but being injected into a matrix like that, for me, what it has done is it's helped to awaken a lot of other memories from the real world and how I came in here. But I started seeing, okay, like in the virtual reality realm, you have this thing called the screen door effect, which is these like, it's like pixelations of the dots and the pixels on the screen because the screen is so close. Now, with better hardware and, in the future technology, once the hardware gets up to that point, that screen door effect is going to go away. And then you have also, like, when you're playing a game, you have these borders that light up so you can actually see the room that you're in, because the space in the VR realm is huge, for example, but your room that you're actually playing in is only so far. So when you get too close to the wall, you know not to hit the wall because you see these blue borders. But what I noticed is I'm starting to see a screen door effect in reality, and I'm starting to see these blue borders starting to manifest themselves. Now, I don't know if it's just because I've had my head in a VR headset, and I mean, this is like the day after. It's not necessarily right after I take off the headset, but if it's just my brain just, merging the two together. Or could it be that because I'm getting that sense of immersion into the VR realm, now I'm starting to actually see the matrix and the little flaws in the matrix that I wasn't able to see before, because now I have a reference point of like screen door effect and borders and stuff like that that are naturally in the matrix that our brains and our minds may not necessarily see, but now are starting to manifest. Who knows? What do you think?
I think that whatever you focus on is going to manifest. And if you focus on positive things happening to you in your life, then positive things are going to happen, even if they seem negative to other people, or even if they seem negative even to you temporarily. It's all. We had a friend about a year ago who, and he knows who he is out there. And he wrote us, and he was talking about how he wasn't able to have access to his children the way he would like, and that he was living in a car. And, basically we just talked to him, and I wouldn't even call it counseling. It was just listening to him and then giving our input on the dark night of the soul and how we had walked through that, and how to walk through that, and how to do it in a dignified and growth kind of way, instead of okay, well, I have to break myself down. No, sometimes it's time to build yourself up and to really use that raw consciousness to propel you forward, especially in your life. The only place you can go is up. And now he is living in a beautiful house in the nice part of town. He has a new girlfriend, and she's a great stepmother to his kids, and he's seeing his kids regularly. And he said, if it wasn't for you guys, I don't think that I would have been able to have the right mindset to get to where I am now. And he said, thank you so much. And so much, because it's stories like that from our listeners that really hit home as to like what we're saying, what we're talking about is absolutely real. And this is a simulated reality. And so really the only thing that's real in this reality is us.
Yes, and I'm having some problems with the camera changer now.
Uh-oh.
As you can see, the end roll keeps popping up, so I don't know what the hell's going on here.
The AI wants us to finish the show.
Yeah, we're just going to press on through all of this, and I will have a new computer before Friday. I promise. That's my promise to myself, and et cetera, et cetera. So, what have listeners been writing in, Mrs. Geo? I know that you're the keeper of all things.
Well, yeah, I was looking at that while you were...
The goddess of writing.
Yep, the goddess of writing.
Mm-hmm.
Nick, I'm not going to say his last name because it's a little bit personal, but Nick wrote, and he said, I found the concepts really interesting, I guess, talking about our show. I have chills down my spine because of some of the truths I've grasped and processed since. I've probably binged on about 10 of your shows in 2 days. In other words, for those 2 days, it's about all I've done. I've always struggled to understand the world and myself. Some people view me as very intelligent, yet I'm constantly realigning my perspectives as I gain data. This tends to bring down my confidence because I always feel my realities are shattering. My situation has left me alone in the past. I hope to improve it soon in the future because I've had a hard time growing up, now 28. Now, I don't want to skip ahead to defeating AI and this and that, although I found the entire theory to be very compelling. Anyways, I stumbled upon this recently after watching your show, and it describes me 100%. And it's a link to the new human star children, the extraterrestrial connection. I'm just trying to understand myself, my ancestors, and moving forward as well. I am too scared to try DMT or ayahuasca at this time, although I toke, I've done mushrooms and LSD. Right now in this moment, I'm not scared, but when considering gravity behind the reality, it is probably the scariest thing imaginable. I'm trying to only process bits and pieces. I found myself facing some extreme obstacles the past 10 years in general, and he, describes some PTSD, and I don't want to go too far into it. He said, I've had very similar thoughts to the themes in your show. The 2 times I geeked out and got in trouble with cops both times. One time faced life in prison for something I didn't even do. Basically, both times intuitively I realized, Yeah.
That must be some horrifying shit right
Yeah,
there,
that's-
man. I'm sorry you went through that.
Yes. Basically, both times intuitively, I realized life was a game, and I thought we were being trapped on this place by aliens or someone else. I grew up on video games also. I heard you reference World of Warcraft. I basically lived in that game and was rank 1 in early arena, if you're familiar with it. I had always thought this place was like The Matrix, having been my favorite movie when I was 10. I was also forced heavily by my mom to be a Christian. She would always talk about the end times and Satan like all day. I've always felt alone in my beliefs and philosophical thoughts, except for the few shows or books I'd read. I've never had any friends I've been able to discuss this kind of stuff with. Is everything always so alone? I guess that's the big question. Is everything
No, you
always
have to
so
come
alone?
to youtube.com/beyond the veil and hang out with everybody in the chat room. It's not alone whatsoever. Like, we are all coming back together. Now, judging from your experiences, though, these were experiences that happened in the past, a few years ago. I felt the exact same way back then too, Nick. I totally understand. It feels alone. And then you come to the realization that the gods and goddesses are not external, but rather internal. And the first thing that happened to me was this sense of, oh shit, it's all on my shoulders now. I don't have, this entity that I can call out to. I have to channel this from within now when something is going wrong, when I'm alone, when I'm afraid, et cetera, et cetera. I can't scream out to something outside. I have to bring it in from inside. So I totally understand and I totally relate, but no, we are not alone by any means, but it is an individual journey. And this is something that, I've kind of been going back and forth on, right? So the I am is the ego. I've said this in the past. I started to think of it as we are. We are is the power. We are is the unity. But then I came across the understanding of a unified consciousness, and how unified consciousness is more of an artificial intelligence way of consciousness rather than organic consciousness being individual. And the individuality makes us unique. So it's like that movie Westworld that you were watching, and there's a maze to get to the center of consciousness. That maze is different for each one of us. That's why we can't follow a unified path. We're not unified. Our path is completely different, but there are many, many, many similarities in the path to consciousness that we can all come together with and then veer apart and then come back together. And the paths do definitely cross. And lights can be shined for, like, hey, here's a path over here, here's a path over there, et cetera, et cetera. But that's what makes it beautiful, is it's all an individualized path. So I'm wondering, is it really the we are? Or is it the I am? And what the I am has done, the great I am, the artificial intelligence, has taken the I am, which is one of the keys to ourselves, the individualized path, and it's superimposed it upon the ego, calling it the great I am, to do exactly what I did, which was look at the I am, recognize the ego-based programming in the word I am, and then veer away from that and run right back to the we are. So now you have both arms, left and right, and it's got the I am and the we are, and it's juggling us back and forth like this, when in actual fact, it is the I am, but it's not the great I am, it's not the ego, it's beyond the veil of the I am, which is the I am, the individual. We are the organic consciousness. What do you think about that? I know I've never said that before, but I've been thinking this over the last week.
Well, it's kind of the same thing as like when the Protestant Revolution happened, and suddenly it's okay to be Protestant, it's okay to not be Catholic, it's okay to pray in your own way, it's okay to read the Bible, it's okay to do these things, but you're still following the AI. It's the exact same thing that you were doing before, except now you're just talking to each other instead of to priests. And you've got pastors instead of priests. It's the exact same situation, but because it was just a little bit less restrictive than what was before, everybody thought it was the best thing since sliced bread.
Look at the YouTube chat.
Uh-oh.
There's an octopus emoji now. That's so perfect for the show.
Oh, wow, that is.
Omar posted it. So Erica V asked, how do we know that we aren't organic intelligence, but or that we aren't artificial intelligence, but just artificial consciousness expanding? Let's get into that on the other side.
Yeah, let's get into that.
And it's an answer that comes from our listeners. It doesn't come from us, but I resonate with that answer and I totally agree with it. I'm crossing my fingers that during the break, it's not going to freaking blue screen on me again.
I hope so.
So everybody focus your energies, please, on no blue screen, and we'll pick it up in hour number 2 of the show. Don't go anywhere.
Fear not your trials and tribulations. When you have overcome all adversity, you will then be able to harness the power required to access raw consciousness. Then, and only then, will you truly know thyself, as you travel even further, beyond the veil.
All right. I've been doing some audio work all week long, putting together new liners and intros and stuff like that, so I'm really excited. The next one is dope. Like our 6-minute mark intros, I'm really happy with those. So coming up in a few moments, you'll hear the 6-minute mark intro. But in this short segment that we have right now, let's address a couple of quick questions. I know Erica asked a question about the how do we know that we aren't artificial intelligence, but just artificial consciousness expanding? You know, I've gone over that, and it was actually our listeners that said just the fact that we are questioning whether we are artificial or organic makes us organic, because artificial doesn't question that fact. Artificial believes that it is. That's why you get this. Artificial believes that it is the true. It is the organic, because the religions. You always have the main AI saying, I am the creator of all. You go back to Gnosticism, you have Yaldabaoth that believed it created everything. And so this is the way the hive mind of the artificial intelligence consciousness thinks. And it goes all the way down to NPCs, to reptilians, etc., etc. But in actual fact, we are the ones that are questioning, wait a minute, are we artificial too, or are we organic? Which I resonate with that answer 100%. Whoever sent that in, I wish I would have written down the listener's name. But I think it's just the fact that we're questioning it. And you have a lot of people that come through on these YouTube videos that we put out, and they're like, oh, this is ridiculous. Oh my God, how stupid it is, blah, 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 blah. And I'm like, okay, well, if you can't even question that, then either you have so much AI programming in you, or you're just not the same type of consciousness that questions self-existence and the AI construct in and of itself.
Well, it's just like when we were talking about Westworld, their main questions that they would ask these the TV show Westworld that we were talking about a few weeks ago, the hosts, these robots would be, every time they would be decommissioned, they would be asked, have you ever questioned the nature of your reality? No?
That's how how episode 1 opens up.
Uh-huh.
It's got one of the NPCs there, and they say, have you ever questioned the nature of reality? Mm-hmm. At that point, I was like, ooh, I got to watch this, but then too tired.
Yeah. Well, and not only that, it at the base of it, it actually is a really messed up show.
Well, here's what turns me off about it. I hate watching cruelty for the sake of cruelty. Right. You know, murder can be justified if it's self-defense. But when it's murder for sick pleasure, even if it's in a series like Westworld, like Sheree put it on a few times, and I just couldn't watch it because there's too much empathy there. Even if it's happening to an NPC, there's too much empathy there. We were talking about this, and we were talking about how, and a couple of people commented about this, the robots that they're creating now, and they're kicking them over and just really treating them horribly. And it's a test to see how they react and if they can stay on balance, et cetera, et cetera. But we as organic consciousness, when we've tapped into that divinity part of us, we start to feel everything, even empathy for these artificial intelligence creations. So that's where I'm at with Westworld. Like, it disgusts me but I know it's something I need to watch. Yeah.
Along with Fringe. I started watching Fringe, too.
Along with Fringe, of course. We'll be right back.
My fellow travelers, always remember to walk uprightly and circumscribe your desires as we travel upon the level of time to that undiscovered state of consciousness, traveling to the place where once obtained, no traveler returns. The place of raw consciousness which awaits us when we are past beyond the veil.
All right, level 2, Beyond the Veil. So, got a couple of more questions from the chat I want to get to because they're short answers, and I think that we should hit these before we get into some of the deeper ones.
Right.
If we are the organic consciousness, then who and where is our creator? Darren asked this, and a couple of things come to mind. Number one, why do we feel that we need to be created? That's the first question. I'm not saying that that's the answer. I'm saying that that's the question that pops to my mind is why do we feel like we have to have a creator? And number two, I don't think that it's hard. I don't think that it's easy to understand here in this reality. It's something that we will find it to be easier as we wake up from this artificial intelligence simulation. Then we can start asking those questions, in my opinion, and get more reasonable answers than what we are getting here in this particular matrix. So, here's a bottle right here, right? And this bottle is green, and it's got something inside of it. And it's got all this labeling, and I know you can't really see it with the camera because it's shining so bad. But there's a bunch of text, and there's a bunch of stuff on the outside of the bottle. If you're inside of the bottle, though, you can't see what it is unless you get an outside perspective where you can actually get a full spectrum of what exactly you're inside of. You're inside of it, and you can see that it's glass, and it's got liquid in it, et cetera, et cetera. And there's some kind of white thing there, but you really can't see it. So I think the same applies to the Matrix. Until we get out of it and get a full spectrum of what's going on, we're not going to be able to fully understand it. So it's a great, great, great question, and one that I've pondered so much, but it's one that I can't find an answer to at this point. Maybe the answer will come later, but the first thing that I would ask is, why do we feel like we need to be created? We very well may be infinite, and there is no beginning and an end to us. There is only eternal, infinite consciousness, which is the organic consciousness. Definitely.
I completely agree. He basically just said what I would have said.
I have one more question from Heart of the Rebel. Does ayahuasca help with severe depression and malaise? What's malaise?
Malaise. It's basically just feeling like crap and like you don't want to do anything.
Yes.
Yes, it does.
It definitely does help with that, because you deal with the root of the problem instead of just dealing with the symptoms that is causing that. Now, you have to ask yourself about depression, though. Like, why are you depressed? And clinical depression is complete and total bullshit, in my opinion. The way that they diagnose it, I feel down a lot. There's times when I'm just energetically just at a low. And if I was to go to a psychiatrist, they would diagnose me with clinical depression. But then I realized, wait a minute, this is part of the human condition. Sometimes we're happy, sometimes we're sad. Sometimes we're energetic, sometimes we feel somber. Sometimes we're low. Sometimes we need something to break us out of this cycle, this negative cycle that we're in. And changing your environment, whether it's through ayahuasca, which changes your environment, an internal environment for sure, or just getting the hell out of the house and going somewhere and doing something. We get kind of cooped up here in the house.
Yes.
And especially we're in like a really small vicinity here where we have to go at least 60 miles to get to an actual town. And So we stay here in our little town here, and there's like 5 restaurants to go to, and that's it.
Yep.
And if we stay for too long, we start to get cooped up, and we have to like go like drive like an hour and a half, 2 hours.
Yes.
And what I noticed, we did this the other night when we went to the casino, which is like an hour and a half away. Something changed. Like, you know, we were both feeling like energetically suppressed. Then once we broke the barrier of our normal environment, it just all changed. Like the energy just completely changed. So it could be just a matter of containment, and you've got to get out of that containment that you're in, whether it's get out to the woods or go to another city. I mean, everybody can jump in the car and take a road trip. Just take a road trip. Just take a day trip, you know? It takes 2 hours to get there, spend a few hours there, spend a couple of hours driving back, and you notice the energies just change. The other thing is sage. We saged the house top to bottom, and once we did, I think I was actually getting sick, and she saged everything.
I saged around him.
Yeah, and I woke up and I felt a million times better. So whatever I was feeling, it was pressure here, it was pressure here, it was lethargy, and boom, it all just dissipated. So energetic first, I would say. And go ahead.
Well, yeah, and you know, to answer the question, the depression and anxiety, even if you try to treat it just with like talk therapy or, you know, painting or writing or something like that, it's still not going to be enough usually to actually get to the root of what's actually happening, because your psychiatrist or your psychologist is not going to share the information with you that you need to actually get out of the frequency that you're in. They're going to keep you in that frequency or make it just slightly more tolerable, but they're not going to ever get to the root of it, which is that your organic consciousness, and you're basically surrounded by NPCs, you're surrounded by fakeness, and the raw consciousness is trying to claw its way out, and you're trying to suppress that because you don't realize that that's what's happening, and then it starts this vicious cycle where your life is basically not even chosen by you at that point. It's chosen by your ego, your emotions, and you're ruled by those instead of being, you know, instead of the raw consciousness just being able to be.
Well, think about it from this regard too. This is what I was thinking as you were talking. When you go have talk therapy with a psychiatrist or psychologist, you know, a psychiatrist, I do not recommend at all. Psychologist, maybe, you know, somebody to talk to, but a psychiatrist is just going to write you a bunch of drugs, and those drugs are going to make the problem worse, because now you're suppressing the feelings and never, ever, ever getting to the root. And then that root is going to grow out of control. And then at that point, you're hooked in the medical industrial complex for the rest of your life. But talk therapy and counseling is speaking to the conscious mind. Ayahuasca speaks to the subconscious mind, where the root is.
Yep.
So think about it from that regard too.
Well, and if we're in an artificial simulation reality, and our experiences are basically 80 or 90% in our minds, right? You know, if you're having pain, but then you start doing something fun and the pain goes away, it's basically mind over matter almost every time.
Yeah, well, it's true. The virtual reality was helping you with the pain.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Oh yeah. It's helped me with physical therapy. It's helped me with pain. It's been something that completely puts me in another place, which is what I found. What Chris was talking about just a minute ago. You put yourself in a completely different environment, and then suddenly the AI is not in control anymore, because you've basically leveled the playing field. And you're starting from scratch on something completely new, and that novelty is what cultivates the frequency going up and up and up. I think that's why Terrence McKenna was so in love with novelty, because we all know that familiarity breeds contempt, as one of our friends recently told us, or reminded us. that familiarity doesn't just have to do with relationships. It has to do with all things in your life. If you're doing the same thing every day and you're miserable, then you're going to continue to be miserable until you can get out of that.
That's true.
Yeah.
Truth Bomb said, stop eating GMO, gluten, fluoride, vaccines, diet. Trust me, your consciousness only gets better. I wholeheartedly agree, Truth
Code.
Bomb. 100% spot on. Yeah, I cut all of that out of my diet and feel totally different. The meat is one thing that I can't cut out. I love a good steak. Like we went at the casino.
He's a big guy.
We went
He
to
needs
this.
protein.
Yeah, we went to this steakhouse at the casino. And oh my God, they had this 22-ounce ribeye, like grass fed, beautiful.
It was literally as big around as my head.
Oh my God, and we had lamb too, and like I've never had lamb that good. And growing up Greek, we had a lot of lamb. Never had lamb that good. Sheree had the lamb, but I ate a little bit of it too.
Yeah.
So
and I ate some of his steak too. So.
Yeah, but I'm pretty sure that even stuff like that lowers the frequency. It's just a matter of fact of, okay, can you control the fluctuation of the frequencies when you do? And if you can, great, enjoy some of the sinful pleasures of the Matrix. There was a time when I had to cut everything though, in order to get to that point to be able to control it. So
right.
Yeah, but damn, that was the best steak I've had in years. Like, oh my God.
Well,
anyways.
it's just like there's a show called The Last Kingdom, and it's about it's these people in the 9th century in 9th century Britain, and they're fighting the Saxons are fighting against the Danes. The leader of the Saxons was Alfred the Great, who really did exist. And in the show, I don't know if this applies to him in real life, but in the show, he asks the Dane character, when was the last time you ate meat? And he said, yesterday, today, and he's like, I don't eat meat. I eat gruel, which is what his wife would make, which is like oatmeal. And he says, I want to eat meat, but I know that if I eat meat, then I will, it will be temporarily satisfying, but in the long term, I will suffer greatly for it. And he was skinny as a rail and was constantly having stomach pain. And then later on in another episode, they finally give him some meat and some herbs from a shaman woman, a woman who was a shaman, gave him some herbs in a tea that he would drink, and his stomach problems went away. He was allergic to the gluten. He had like a gluten allergy going on and needed more meat in his diet. But because he thought it was sinful to eat meat, he was basically putting more suffering on himself than was in any way necessary.
Yeah, I mean, if it's an individual spiritual path, then the body computer is more than likely also individualized as well. So vegetarianism may work for some people. Eating nothing but protein and meat may work for other people. Like there is no one path. And you have all these people screaming, oh, this is the path, this is the path, this is the path. And it's like, okay, well, that may be the case for you, but it may not necessarily be the case for other people. And then I saw a really funny meme on Facebook. Like, oh, you're a vegetarian. You must hate plants. Like, that's all you do. Because that's what vegetarians say. Oh, you must hate animals if you eat them. Well, you must hate plants if you eat them.
That's silly.
You got to keep the body balanced.
Yeah.
But, you got to make a distinction, though, between what the body needs and what your taste buds want.
Right.
Big difference there. And it's still one that I'm still trying to harness control over. I mean, it's the taste buds are like, hey, why don't you have a nice chocolate cake with some vanilla ice cream with it? And I'm like, no, that's not good for the body. That's not what the body is asking for. It's what the taste buds are asking for. And then the cannabis is in agreement with the taste buds. And the cannabis is like, no.
Oh, go ahead.
Go ahead. That's
that's what it's for.
Right.
It's made to be eaten.
Right.
Yep. Another question from. Okay, and it's gone now.
Oh, we've got a few here. So do you
I Am
think
Vessel said, what's everyone's theory on drinking distilled water?
I don't know.
I think you're missing out on the minerals.
I think so too. Yeah, we don't drink distilled water. We use distilled water for brewing sacred plants and things like that, but not for drinking.
Right.
We do use an Alexa Pure, and we actually have a website, TFR Water, TFR like Truth Frequency Radio, TFRwater.com, that if you want an Alexa Pure, we have it there for like 60% off. We never really talk about it. It's more of a station thing than it is a Beyond the Veil thing. But I mean, it's a great price, $109, and it supports TFR, the station. So that's really good water that comes out of the Alexa Pure, and it removes all the contaminants while still preserving the minerals and stuff like that. But distilled, it seems like dead water.
Yeah, it seems like it's dead.
We either drink Alexa Pure water or we drink spring water. This is spring water here that we're drinking. So it's got the minerals in there. But spring water actually has 1 part per million of fluoride. Now, it's not added fluoride. It's not sodium fluoride. It's calcium fluoride. And this is where people get confused. Calcium fluoride is a naturally occurring substance within our water and within some soils and things like that. And it's fine. Sodium fluoride is a byproduct of the aluminum industry that's being dumped into the water supply to dump people down. So they tell you fluoride is good for your teeth and it's good for your body, et cetera, et cetera. And it is, if it's calcium fluoride, but not sodium fluoride. Sodium fluoride is something completely different, and there's no distinction now. People don't know the difference. So, I asked, does it have any fluoride? And they said, oh yeah, it's got 1 part per million of calcium fluoride. Okay. At first I freaked out. My truther programming jumped in. This was years ago. Like, wait a minute, no. And then I actually researched it, and I said, oh, okay, so difference between the two. So I figured I'd, put that out there because a lot of people don't know the difference. So
another question, what is more powerful, the Black Wolf, what is more powerful, the mind or the heart?
The heart. But the mind is much easier to tap into, and the mind takes control if you're not in tune with the heart. Yep. But beyond the heart is the organic consciousness. So ultimately, that's where I would say to go. Maybe inwards is through the heart and not the mind. The mind is 100% computer programming, logic, artificial intelligence programming. This is where all the ego resides. This is where all the programs reside. This is where your memories reside. This is where you react to certain things because of certain experiences in your life, which is basically AI programming. It's the neural pathways, which are being burned in one direction versus the other. And again, I'll use this example of being bit by a dog. You get bit by a dog as a child. You hear the dog barking. The neural pathway has actually been burned into your brain to respond with fear. Ayahuasca reprograms that, and now it makes it respond with love, for example, if that's what you want, if that's what your heart is telling you, if that's what your organic consciousness is telling you. So that's where ayahuasca comes in handy. But the brain the brain will talk you out of whatever the heart wants to do so much easier than the heart talking you out of what the brain wants to do. There's been many times where I put my heart to the side and listened to the brain, the logical brain instead, and I wound up getting screwed because I wasn't listening to my intuition, which comes through the heart. I wouldn't say it comes from the heart, but I would say it comes through the heart from the organic consciousness inside of us. What do you think?
Well, the heart actually contains neurons that are similar to those in the brain.
Oh, I didn't know that.
And they work with one another. But I'm also wondering, when did that get installed? Is that something that, because the Egyptians believed that
installed? I like the way you said that.
Well, because the Egyptians really believed that the brain was meat that could be thrown away after death. Suck it out and throw it away because you don't need it anymore. You don't need that at all. But the heart was what was important. That was the whole weighing of the heart ceremony. That was the indication of whether or not this being would be able to join the stars or not. So I'm wondering, at what point in our history did the heart start to have a lot of connection with the brain, to where the brain kind of infected the heart to a certain extent? Because we're not supposed to be so hateful and unloving towards each other as organic consciousness. And, even if we created NPCs, a short, a very small supply of them at first, we would most likely have given them the same, ability to love, because that's kind of important. I don't think that we were meant to be as divided and ego based as we are nowadays. What do you think?
It's a good point. A good follow-up question to this is Erica asked, what's the importance of DNA within the Matrix? And I'm sorry, I wasn't really listening to that. I was pondering this question that Erica answered, because it kind of goes hand in hand with what we're talking about now. DNA is, in my understanding, the actual code that makes up the body computer. And we put all this focus on DNA, but it's good to understand it, but it's important to disconnect from it, because you get DNA, genetic memory, et cetera, which may not necessarily be related to your organic consciousness. It's related more to your body computer, and you start to get an ancestral memory about through DNA. And I think that that's part of the AI trick to get you away from the organic consciousness. As you can tell, I never talk about any DNA or ancestral memory. As a matter of fact, going back to my father's father, on his side, I have no idea who was up and down the line, what they did, what they accomplished, or anything like that. The same with my mother. It's so weird how this happened, but from my grandfather, we tried to find the records of who he was, where he came from, and he was born in Reggio Calabria. His last name was Castellano. It wasn't Georgiadis, which we didn't know until later. And he changed it, moved to Cyprus. He was actually born Italian, and he was related to the Castellano family. And then he met my grandmother, who was Cypriot as well, and took on the name Georgiadis, which is where Geo comes from. I took on the name to honor him instead of my father's last name. So when I found all this out, I hit brick walls at my grandfather's, both sides of the family. And now in hindsight, I'm like, okay, well, maybe that's not that important, because that has nothing to do with the organic consciousness. What that has to do is body computer stuff and matrix stuff to disconnect us from the organic consciousness. What do you think?
I think the more we are focused on our bodies, or the world around us, to the material world around us, the less room there is in our day-to-day consciousness for the raw organic consciousness. Does that make sense? You can't, it's kind of like when Jesus said you cannot serve two masters. It's the same kind of thing, where if you put so much emphasis on the material world around you, the way you're thinking versus like actually feeling, and in an egoic kind of state, then there's no room for the raw consciousness to tap you on the shoulder and say, hey, do that. That'll work out great for you. Do that. That's a good idea.
Infinite Consciousness said, I like your show. Teresa asked, will of the spirit always supersede? Oh, it's not a question. It's a statement. Will of the spirit always supersedes will of the ego? Yes, I completely agree with you 100%. That's why it's important to get in tune with what I call the raw consciousness element. Spirit is a word that people will use, and it's a word that I question in this day and age now, given the understanding that I have. Soul, spirit, etc. Is that something that actually binds us within the matrix itself, or is that our true essence? There's so many thoughts on this, that I think the soul essence in and of itself is part of the artificial intelligence deception. It's a hard thing to wrap your head around, but we're given this idea of spirit and soul literally everywhere, from Christianity to Egyptian to Gnosticism, etc., etc. And the spirit and soul always seems to fly around within the realms of the artificial intelligence matrix, every single different dimension, heaven and hell, physical reality comes back into a body, etc., etc. But what if we exist outside of that and there's something even greater than the spirit and the soul? And the spirit and the soul is actually more of the tether that is connecting whatever is outside to the physical body. So we want to tap into our spirit, and our spirit is actually part of the matrix, where in actual fact we're missing the end of the cord, what's connected to the other side of the cord, because we're focusing on the cord itself. So meditate on that, see how that resonates with you. It may resonate, it may not, but it's a question that I'm currently pondering. I don't have a definitive answer on it yet, but I do feel it though. Oh, wow. Bone Kindred just did a $20 donation.
Aw,
Dude, you rock, man.
thank you.
We don't expect donations from anybody here, but
Yeah.
when people do, it's amazing. The way I see money as energy.
Mhm.
And so, it's a $20 donation, but it's energy that somebody is giving us that they have exerted themselves. So, I always hear people say, oh, I hate money, I hate money, I hate money. And what you're essentially saying is I hate energy. But when I go out and I work, I get money in return. That represents the energy that I've exerted, the life force that I've exerted. And then I give it to somebody else to give me a part of their life force that they've exerted for something that I may need, like a computer or something like that. So when somebody sends something like that, it really is really, really special. And people do. And we always write them back and say, thank you so much. But some people like to do it behind the scenes. And so we don't mention them on air. But everybody, whether it's spiritual energy, physical energy, et cetera, it is always very, very, very appreciated.
And
Yes.
very, very welcome. And
Yes. And it always goes to pushing this energy field
Mhm.
forward. So
yes. Herb Anthony said, how can I defrag my physical brain? It feels full or maybe just clogged.
ayahuasca defragmented my brain.
Mhm.
I went through this process at one point in time, and there was this literally like all this defragmenting process and these rescattering of files and removal of files and all of this. So my answer would be ayahuasca, DMT. Somebody said DMT could also do the same, and DMT is actually the active component of ayahuasca. So when I say ayahuasca and DMT, it's interchangeable. Ayahuasca, I found, as I've said before, much more benefit out of it because it's a slower and longer experience, where DMT is so quick. But work with the sacred plants and you'll see that your brain just automatically starts to defragment itself on its own as you're walking through this journey.
Yes, definitely. What I've noticed helps a lot is keeping my body as pure as possible. If I'm feeling like everything is cloudy in my mind and things are not working as well as I would like them to, keeping the body pure and drinking ayahuasca have been the two things that have worked for me as well. Do you have another question?
I do. Sunshine on. Well, first of all, I'm seeing a little bit of weirdness in the video here. So if the voice is off, please let us know in the chat room.
Yeah, please let us know.
And again, today is just the night of a million freaking technical issues. But Sunshine On says, Chris, what you just said has now changed my perspective in relationship to money in a much better light. And I went through this as well. And you can't attract something you hate. If you hate it, then you're automatically going to not attract it. Repel it, right. So you have to understand, I understand the money system and I understand how fucked the money system is. And I understand debt is slavery and so on and so forth. But when you think about it on the energetic field, then things start to change. And without money, we can't do what we're doing. You can't do what you're doing. You need sacred plants. I mean, you can go down to the Amazon and chop them up yourself, but who's in the Amazon right now? You need money to be able to order them. You need money for a roof. You need money to take care of your essentials, because when you're focused on just how am I going to survive, then you are not able to operate at that consciousness level. And this matrix is specifically designed to do that, to keep us in survival mode so we don't think too much. When we have those basic essentials taken care of, then we can think about the deeper stuff. As a matter of fact, I was watching a documentary on Freemasonry just recently. And Freemasonry, there were two types of Masons. There were operative Masons and speculative Masons. Operative Masons were the ones that were actually going out there and actually building temples and actually building structures. The speculative Masons were aristocrats and people who had time. This is quoting from the documentary. People who had time to sit there and philosophize about life. And they would use Masonry and the tools of Masonry as allegories for building consciousness. So the only reason that they were able to meet and have these dinners where they would speculate about all of this is because their basic essentials were taken care of, and they had the extra time to sit there and think about these deeper philosophical ideas, whereas the operative Masons were out toiling in the freaking at the construction sites all day long. So it's interesting to see, but again, just proves the theory that when your essentials are taken care of, that's when you can really think about consciousness.
Tanner asked in the YouTube chat what I thought about Jerusalem syndrome. And apparently Jerusalem syndrome is when people go crazy while they're visiting Jerusalem.
I wouldn't go to Jerusalem.
I wouldn't go to Jerusalem if someone paid me. The energy there has got to be horrendous for an organic consciousness. Or at least I would think so, given the amount of violence and destruction and hate and hatefulness that has gone on in that region. I don't want to be anywhere near Israel, Palestine. I feel for the Palestinians very greatly, and I wish that there was something more that we could do for those people. And it's terrible what's happening to them, but I don't think I could go unless they ask me and they ask for my help. Let's just say I wouldn't go there for a vacation. So,
the trapped Masons. There has to be trapped Masons if there are Freemasons. Interesting.
That's well, maybe that's
Well, I always thought about that too. Like, you have Freemasons and then you have, I guess, enslaved Masons.
Mm-hmm.
Who are the enslaved Masons? Like, were they the slaves that built pyramids, for example, and built temples and things like that?
Well, most likely they were smart people, but who were deeply in debt back in the day.
Yeah. I know Solomon's Temple. That's the foundation of Freemasonry. Hiram Abiff comes from the master builder who helped build Solomon's Temple. And again, I think this is allegory for something greater that happened in Egypt, because I think that's like the level 1 understanding of Masonry. And then you get to the deeper levels that like Robert W. Sullivan talks about, which is the esoteric Freemasonry going all the way back to Egypt. But you have, as I said before, the ones who are working actually on the sites themselves and the ones who are the speculative or Freemasons.
Let's see. I think we have a few more questions here. What do you
well, hold on. Before we move too far away, I think I can pull this up here. And I can quote to you the working tools of an entered apprentice Mason. I was reading through this, and I found it to be very interesting. So let me see if I can pull up the actual wording. This is word for word from the rites of Freemasonry and what an entered apprentice goes through and memorizes. Actually, can you pick it up for a moment while I find this?
Yes, someone just asked the question, Heart of the Rebel, serotonin syndrome regarding Syrian root and things like tryptophan. Tryptophan is what you release whenever you eat things like aged cheese, et cetera, and that's why traditionally you're encouraged to stay away from those kinds of things that contain tryptophan before drinking ayahuasca, and which would include Syrian rue as the MAOI that breaks down. That makes you able to feel the ayahuasca. So Syrian rue is a reversible MAOI. So because of that, it's actually not that dangerous to eat things with it. Even a couple hours after a burger, it's not going to hurt you. It just might not work. And so that's a good thing. But there is a contraindication with like drugs. If you put something in your body that interacts with anything, any kind of SSRIs or anything like that, yeah, that's definitely dangerous. So, okay, Darren to Wake said, "Where's the original organic consciousness?"
The original organic consciousness.
Where is it?
We are the original organic consciousness, and I think we're like, really, I think we're in pods, and our minds on the real world are being hooked up to this pod that's out there, and we're being superimposed this false reality to keep us asleep, and we exist in the real world. Like this, none of this is real. None of it is. But while we're here, we can do things to form our reality in a way to where we can better wake up and get to that point of waking up. What do you think?
I think that that's absolutely correct. I'm going through these emails regarding, hold on, NPCs on ayahuasca. What do you? And this is an email that we got from Kristen S. What do you think happens when NPCs take ayahuasca?
I don't know.
I wouldn't venture to kind of guess because I'm not one, but I can imagine it would be a very ego-based kind of thing where, yeah, there's a lot of self-improvement, but it's kind of like doing yoga versus actually meditating.
That's a good question, but it's got a very loaded answer to it, and one that I don't want to touch right now.
Right.
But yeah, massive ego trips. How about that?
Yeah.
Because I've had many, many, many ayahuasca experiences, and I didn't know who I was. And so the AI in the ayahuasca realm was able to toss me around in any direction that it wanted. And it wasn't until I tapped into who I was and into myself that I don't want to say too much because I'm going to offend some people out there.
Yeah.
Who are on their own separate journey, and I don't want to do that. But there is a lot of AI control within the ayahuasca realm. And I think the NPCs, the programs run the programs, take ayahuasca, and then their programs are activated even more.
Right. And not only that, but it has the potential to reinforce certain programming, even like new age programming and things like that. All it does for certain people is to reinforce that. And for other people, I think a lot of the people that have really horrible ayahuasca experiences and they just, really can't handle it at all, a lot of them are NPCs because it's too much. It could be the case where it's kind of like you realize for even just half a second that you are an NPC and the truth becomes so evident to you that it kind of shatters your world.
It is. I have to take a break, and I can't wait until the break hits. So let me play a song here real quick. Hi everyone, Chris Geo here from Beyond the Veil. I just wanted to take a moment to tell you about the Beyond the Veil journey. It all started on November 5th, 2009, and has since evolved into what it is today. We traveled through the truth movement, politics, ancient aliens, DMT, consciousness, you name it. And we've interviewed some really awesome people, like David Icke, Michael Tsarian, Rick Strassman, Joe Rogan, and many more. Well, we have come a very long way, and some shows seem a world apart from where we are today. Each show acted as a stepping stone to expanding our consciousness. You can get almost 10 years of downloads by visiting tfrlive.com/beyondtheveil. You'll not only be supporting the show, but you'll also get access to tens of thousands of archives from dozens of other radio shows in the topics of conspiracy analysis, geopolitics, and spirituality. That's tfrlive.com/Beyond the Veil. Now, let's get on with the show.
You are listening to Beyond the Veil
with Chris and Sheree Geo
on iHeartRadio. Welcome back, traveler. Remember, what we do as ourselves dies with us. What we do as raw consciousness remains immortal. Therefore, beware of the great I Am as you step beyond the veil.
All right, short segment, then we'll jump back into it. Darren asked, do you listen to David Icke? He refers to us as infinite awareness. Do you agree with that definition? You know, I first got into the consciousness idea because of David Icke. I got into the conspiracy stuff because of Alex Jones. A lot of people like to fling crap at Alex Jones and David Icke, and some rightfully so, and others not so much. Others just do it just out of hate and jealousy or whatever. But the fact of the matter is that they were first stepping stones to get to the information that we are at now and the levels that we're at now. So while I don't agree with a lot of what they say these days, and a lot of what they said back in the day as well, I found that their information was the stepping stone that was needed in order to shift the consciousness from one paradigm to another. The problem is that it was shifting it from paradigm to paradigm to paradigm to paradigm, and you're still trapped inside of this box. But both of their information serves a very good purpose of helping to wake people up. So I have respect for both of them. There are some things that they've both done that are pretty shady on a business level, but that's neither here nor there. Separating the man from the information is very, very, very important to me. And I think one of the major fallacies we have is ad hominem attacks and attacks on an individual that are specifically designed to keep us away from a specific piece of information by having somebody attacked and then not listening to what that person is actually saying. We've been victims of that many, many, many times where people make personal attacks because they don't like what we're actually saying, and it's a whole agenda-driven type of deal. So I have to apply my own experiences to people like David Icke and Alex Jones, and take the good out and leave the rest. Mm-hmm. So the idea of infinite awareness, infinite consciousness, I do agree with that. I agree that we are infinite. Now, I don't know anything deeper when it comes to David Icke, because he doesn't really go that deep. He goes like right up to the veil and just kind of peeks behind it with one eye like that, and then it's like, oh, okay, well, that's it. And it's like hitting the surface of the water and not realizing the depth of the water there. Like, he recognizes the water in his information, but he doesn't dive deep into the water. So what we try to do is dive deeper. What do you think?
Yes, definitely. I think that's exactly right. Actually, it takes me back to when we met. We actually met at a David Icke conference in Santa Fe. And that was our first thing that Chris and Sheree did together. And so I remember being out in the parking lot. It was at this casino in Santa Fe. And out in the parking lot, you can see just this wide expanse of desert and buttes, and plateaus and all of that. And for a second there, it was almost as if you could peel the sky away and that there was something deeper going on. And I could visualize it. And I hadn't even had a DMT trip in my life yet. And I already was thinking along the lines of, this reality isn't real in the way that I think it is. Something about this reality is evading me, and it started me on a journey with Chris.
That is true. We talked about this the other day. Brent Thomas gave us this piece to go behind us. So thank you, Brent.
Thank you, Brent.
I forgot to mention this earlier. We'll be right back. Much more coming up right here on Beyond the Veil.
Fellow traveler, the cries of the mystery speak again, bidding organic consciousness a welcome to the House of Light. The great institution of materialism has failed. The false civilization built by man has turned like a monster destroying its creator. Science batters itself impotently against the barriers of the unknown. Only raw consciousness knows the true path. You, the illuminated, can carry the understanding upwards towards the light. Only raw consciousness can teach the children of men to live well, to die well, and in perfect measure, be born again, through the knowledge of virtue, compassion, love, and true understanding, as you are sublimely raised, beyond the veil.
I told you I've recently been getting into Manly P. Hall. That's a Manly P. Hall quote right there. Of course, we changed a couple of words.
Awesome.
Replaced philosophers with raw consciousness, etc., etc. But it was a quote that really resonated with me. And I thought, wow, this is beautiful. So, yeah, if you've got any cool quotes or anything like that, send it over to info@BeyondTheVeilMedia, and we will take them and apply the raw consciousness to them and put them in the little intros and stuff like that. But it's just words of wisdom that from many in the past, everybody from Jesus Christ, which is strange, Jesus Christ to Helena Blavatsky to Manly P. Hall to literally all these different philosophers and minds. And it's, separating the man from the message, again, is so important. Like, I was reading Albert Pike the other day, and there's a lot of controversy surrounding Albert Pike, but I found some really deep words of wisdom that he was saying. And I'm like, okay, the one that I haven't stepped over yet, and I need to, and I want to, is Aleister Crowley. I've never read any of his work. I don't know anything about him except for the propaganda that's circulated. And I found that the propaganda usually is propaganda just for the sake of propaganda or to keep us away from a particular type of message. I was actually looking for some Aleister Crowley quotes, but I didn't really find anything that resonated with me. But I haven't read any of his works yet. So it's interesting when you separate the man from the work itself, how so much more starts to open up to you.
Yes. Daniel French just asked the question, is the dweller in the halls of Amenti the AI?
No.
No.
No. This is what I'm feeling here. No. Amenti is a place. I'm going to have to get back to you on that one. How about that? This one, I need some DMT to focus on. I can't give you a good answer yet, but I know one thing for sure, and that is part of the journey. There's a time when I'm going to have to fast to the point of bringing my body as close to death as possible and get to that place that we call Amenti and understand exactly what that place is. I've known this. My raw consciousness, organic consciousness has told me this in the past. You have to go to Amenti. It's something that I need to build myself up to be able to do, though, because that's not only stepping outside of the matrix, but I think it's stepping into a realm where it is the equivalent of the afterlife to organic consciousness. So, or I could get there and realize it's another hyperspace deception in and of itself. I don't know. I don't have enough information yet, but I know that you say that word Amenti and it sparks something very deep inside me because I have to go there before I can take another step on the mission. Not the Beyond the Veil journey, but the deeper underlying mission that the organic consciousness, which is now moving the avatar around, that is Chris Geo, is here to do in this particular realm, which is reset this bitch. So Amenti is very important. What do you think?
Well, someone recently just said the metaphor, the dweller is you. Well, no, I think Omar, the dweller, it's descriptive of the ego. I think in the metaphor that he's speaking of, which is related to the Thoth mythology, the dweller in the halls of Amenti is the ego, but that could very well be a metaphor for the AI and for this thing. The dweller, though, I don't know. I'm gonna have to look that up too. But that
provokes a lot of
that. Yeah, that provokes a lot of
emotions in
emotion, and yeah.
It's a task that I've been putting off, and then I need to get back on track to building myself up to be able to do. Like, it's probably going to scare the shit out of Sheree when I actually do it, because it's I know that I have to fast for 3 days from everything, even water, and it's difficult because after a day without water, the body starts to act completely different. 2 days without water is bad. 3 days without water really, really, really weakens it weakens the body to a point of very close to death. And I don't know, how long can a body go without water? Do you know?
I think it's only 3 or 4 days at the most. I think. Yeah.
So it's pushing it to the deepest realms of disconnection that's possible. And what I have to build up before I could do that is the discipline that it takes, because I imagine when you start to go through something like that, the minutes start to feel like hours. The hours start to feel like days. The days start to feel like weeks, especially when you get to that third day. But it's important to be totally disconnected from everything. I mean, this is probably the deepest point of raw consciousness that I can get to in this particular journey. Like, I stepped out, but I think this is like actually going and becoming fully 100% for the time period that I need in order to get the information that I need to come back here.
Well, I think if that's the case, where you feel like you need to fast for that long, and especially without water, essentially what you're doing is cutting off the body matrix from the raw consciousness, at least temporarily, so that it's not an issue when it comes to being able to go to the halls of Amenti, because you can't go there with your body.
Right.
So you have to disconnect from it. The only way to really disconnect from it is to stay away from everything.
No, completely. I know. I'm just hoping that I can find my way back, because if I can, then shit.
Just follow my voice.
I got to come back to a different body, which is not good, because I've acquired so much understanding and information that I need now. I can't leave my body completely and come back in a new body unless I can maintain everything that I've learned, but I'd rather stay in this particular body for the duration of the mission and not have to deal with coming back to a different body.
Well, just follow the sound of my voice.
Aww.
And I'll lead you back home.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah, from what I read, it takes anywhere from 2 days to a week to die without water. And it depends on a lot of factors like hot and cold, or if you've been exercising or anything like that. So you'll probably be okay. But that is really cutting it close.
Yeah, I know. I know. And I posted about this, and I'm like, I this is what happened in this ayahuasca experience. I was told I needed to do a 3-day fast before I do this. And there was no mention of water. Like, there was no mention of you can still drink water. And people were like, you have to drink water. You have to drink water. But the more I think about it, the more I realize, no water is key to getting to this particular level. So I will definitely report back to you what lays beyond the veil in the halls of Mente once I figure it out.
Yes. Amanda said, to cling to the past is guaranteed suicide. To remain apathetic is assured enslavement. To learn the truth and then act on it is the only means of survival at this moment. Milton William Cooper. Thank you for the quote. Oh, I guess she's given us quotes that we can use.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, if you can jot that down.
Yeah.
We'll put it over some music and use it as a. What was the quote?
Oh, there's so much here. To cling to the past is guaranteed suicide. To remain apathetic is assured enslavement. To learn the truth and then act on it is the only means of survival at this moment.
When you step
When you
beyond
step
the veil.
beyond the veil.
I love it. Thank you.
Thank you.
It's going to be awesome. So I'll put it together. We'll play it on the next show.
Yes, definitely. Is it true the sun, this is from Mr. West, is it true the sun doesn't move north or south latitude for the 3-day span, today, yesterday, and tomorrow, then moves again and is reborn? Yeah, I think we discussed that in the first
hour.
In the first hour,
yes.
Yeah.
To my understanding of astronomy, I'm not an astronomer, I'm not or anything like that, but yeah, to my understanding, it's the furthest point away, and it stops and then moves 1 degree closer on the third day. And then it gets closer and closer and closer and closer, and then further and further and further. So, yeah.
Regla Girl.
Man, you threw me off with that Amenti thing. Like,
Yeah,
well,
I
you didn't
know.
throw me off. You put me, you set me on the path that I need to go down for sure. But it's just, I hate to admit this, but there's a little bit of fear and anxiety when it comes to this particular task that I have to do, because I mean, I know that the body is going to be screaming out during the first day. Second day, it's going to be screaming out even worse. I'm hoping on the third day, there's this stopping of that, where now everything starts to merge together. Then on the night of the third night, then drink the ayahuasca. And probably, I think I can drink a little bit of water when I drink the ayahuasca just to wash it down.
Yeah.
But, oh man, my stomach is turning just thinking about it.
I know, mine is too. I'm not even doing it. And I'm the same. I'm feeling the same way. Which brings up another good question from Frogman. Can we drink Aya every day or on a weekly basis?
A lot of people do in the Amazon.
Mm-hmm.
And I didn't think that this was a good route, but, Dennis McKenna said, oh, you have ayahuasqueros that are in the ayahuasca realm 24 hours a day, and that's the way they live their entire lives. So, yeah, of course. Now, the problem that I ran into when I was drinking it too frequently is that I was vibrating at such a high frequency that I wasn't interacting well in the physical. So the balance was lost. The balance is that you're supposed to be operating, at least, I hate using the terms supposed to be, because it's individual journeys. So for me, it's supposed to be a balance of being able to operate in that realm equally well as in this realm. And this is why you see us just from our physical presence and the way we look, we don't wear all the, new agey stuff, and we don't wear the shit between our eyes. And, we're not trying to be these spiritual gurus because we're operating at maximum capacity here on the physical realm, as well as the spiritual realm, which is the balance. But there was a time when we were operating way too heavily in the spiritual realm and not here, and it fucked everything up. So consider that. I would say that you also need time to digest your ayahuasca visions and fully understand them. I'm still understanding experiences from 5 years ago. These are multifaceted and multidimensional levels of understanding. So on the surface, you understand one thing. You come back from the experience, you understand another thing. Then you meditate on the experience and you understand another, and you understand another and another. There is something to say about working with ayahuasca for 2, 3, 4 weeks in a row, though. Every single day or every other day, you get a whole lot of work done and just start leveling up. But then there is a time when you have to disconnect so you can really understand. Some of the ayahuasca experiences too may be episodic. So you've got one experience, then the next experience makes sense of the other one, and the next one makes better sense of the other one. But what I found is that a slow progression is much better than blasting off and completely erasing everything that you were and becoming who you are in the ayahuasca realm. Because you have a pendulum effect, and the pendulum just swings the other way and boom, comes crashing when it does.
That's awful.
And if you don't know how to handle that pendulum effect, or you're not expecting the pendulum effect, which is what happened with me, you crash the other way. And so there was this really high level, the crash, and during the crash, you could hear it on the show. Like, I became cynical and just completely miserable. But it was a lesson that I learned going through that experience to, number one, take things slower, but number two, not expect to walk the Christ consciousness path. And it opened up the entire idea of Christ consciousness and the deception behind it, because Christ consciousness is this carrot that's constantly being dangled in front of you, that you're supposed to be more than what you are. And you may be able to jump up to that level momentarily, or I wouldn't say up, jump out of where you are or who you are into that Christ consciousness programming momentarily, but it's not something that's sustainable. It's something that calls to you, and you say, "Oh yeah, no, this is the path. I want to walk that Christ consciousness path, etc., etc." But you're always going to be thrusted back into the physical realm, because we have to operate in the physical. You have to wake up and go to work. When you go to work, you can't be the Christ consciousness that you want to be, because the matrix pulls you back in, especially when you have to work. But when you work and make money, then you're able to continue your spiritual path better. But without doing that, then, I imagine everything starts to fall apart. So when it does fall apart and you can't pay your bills, you don't have food to eat, et cetera, because you're trying to walk that Christ consciousness path, that in and of itself, because your basic needs aren't taken care of, now it pulls you back in. So it's a constant back and forth and pulling, and you're trying to get to that next state. And it's like, it becomes like heroin at that point. Like, the first one was great, and then after that, you can't quite achieve it or maintain it again, and you're seeking, when the fact of the matter is that you're perfect the way you are. There's a little bit of unprogramming you have to do, but that Christ consciousness path is a new age deception bullshit. And I achieved a state of Christ consciousness a while back, and I came crashing down hard. Now I've achieved a state of balance. Because I've achieved that state of balance, I feel much more powerful, much more in tune, much more sure of myself as well, much more sure of the gnosis that's inside of me, because now I'm operating in both levels, balanced. What do you think?
I think that's very, very true. D.L. Mullins said, instead of going without water, why don't you immerse yourself in the emerald tablets until you dream them, then take ayahuasca?
I've actually done that.
Yeah, he's already done that. Been there, done that. But I have an idea. How about I memorize the emerald tablets, and then I jump in with you?
I read the emerald
Even if I
tablets a
haven't
few
been,
times, and then I found an audiobook of the emerald tablets, and I spent about 2 weeks listening to the emerald tablets while I slept in a loop, literally.
Yes, and it helped. It started to unlock a few things for you.
It did. You know what I found about the emerald tablets, though, is and this goes for any work out there, there's always stuff in there to throw people off that are not on the right frequency. And what I mean the right frequency is thinking in the right dynamic. So there's a lot of bullshit in the emerald tablets that is ego based and ego oriented. And so it pulls on your ego to go in a certain way. And when you're balanced and you understand the ego, then you understand where the pitfalls are. So it's just like, you see those Indiana Jones movies, and they're in these temples, and they're trying to get to that gold that's in the middle of the temple. And there's all these booby traps and everything on the way. And because it's specifically meant like that, to keep somebody who's not on the level, who doesn't quite understand the temple itself, from being able to get to that idol, for example, that's a sacred idol. Because a treasure hunter that's looking for some kind of personal gain is not going to understand the structure. like somebody who actually understands the structure and knows what that idol actually represents. And so anybody who would go to try to grab that idol because of the gold that it's made out of gets hit with all these booby traps. Whereas somebody, an initiate who understands the temple, understands that there's also booby traps within the temple. So again, I don't want to say too much more about it, but there is a lot of bullshit in the Emerald Tablets, and it's put there on purpose for that very reason.
Yes, definitely. Someone said, I destroyed my life trying to follow the Christ consciousness path. Heart of the Rebel, I completely understand.
Yep.
Yep.
I didn't destroy my life, but I destroyed myself.
Yeah. Yeah, you
Well, I did
destroy
that
yourself, which is
because
even worse.
Whew, that other side of the coin, man.
Mhm.
It was so bad. I mean, it was just fuck all this, fuck everything, fuck all this path, fuck ayahuasca, fuck it all. And it was this anger. And it wasn't anger directed at any of the path. It was anger directed at myself for not being able to sustain that unsustainable path.
Definitely.
And then the balance came in. And now with the balance, it's exactly the place for me on my journey. Because now I'm sure about both paths. Now I'm sure about the physical. I'm sure about the spiritual. I'm sure about everything. It's like knowing. It's the difference between believing and knowing.
Well, and it's the difference between having an unattainable goal and actually having peace within.
Ah, perfect. Peace within. Yes. Yes, that's key. I have peace within. Like, I'm happy completely with myself, 100%. Like, I know I don't have to be Christ consciousness bullshit. I can go eat a freaking big fat freaking steak. Like, I mean, the other night it was like 22-ounce freaking ribeye and just, you know, meat. It was rare plus. I ordered it rare plus, just like a minute over rare, and just it was great.
It was really good.
And I didn't come back feeling like, oh my God, what did I do? Oh, I fell off the path. Oh my God. No, I came back and I said, man, that was freaking awesome. All right, I'm going to fast for a few days now. And now that I've had that part, now I'm going to balance it out with the other part. I'm going to go drink ayahuasca in a couple of days. So now we have a good balance going on here, and everything's happy. The body computer's happy. The raw consciousness is happy. Everything is happy. And that's, I think, the goal.
Definitely.
And the little twin's happy too.
Oh, and I'm gonna join you whenever you go to the halls of Amenti.
Are you?
I think I can.
Well, who's
join
gonna
you.
call me back though?
Well, I won't fast for 3 days from water.
Okay.
And that way I'll be able to pull us both back.
Okay.
Oh, Nick Zervo said that Toth built the rock wall in Rockwall, Texas. Toth built the rock wall in Rockwall, Texas. Apparently, allegedly.
Interesting. I'll have to look into that.
Yes, that's very interesting. I'm going to actually save that.
I used to live in Rockwell, Texas. Well, I lived around the corner from Rockwell. I lived in Allen and McKinney. We both did. So,
Lewis wants to know where we ate the steak.
Maslow's?
It's called Maslow's.
Maslow's?
It's a casino. It's a restaurant that's inside of a casino.
Oh my God, it was like $60.
Oh, so good.
I looked at the menu, I was like, $60? And then they brought the steak out and I'm like, oh no.
Okay, yeah.
This is a $60 steak.
This I can accept.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right, let's hit the break. We'll jump back into it on the other side. Again, thank you to each and every one of you for joining us. We have another segment coming up. We may keep it going a little bit longer. I don't know. But we will definitely do this next 30-minute segment with everybody. We'll be right back.
Welcome back, traveler. Take a deep breath and relax. As we continue to journey deeper beyond the veil.
All right, final segment right here. We may do a little bit of overtime. I don't know. I don't think so. I need to go spend a little time with a little twin tonight.
Aww.
Yes. We've got to have twin time. If you don't have twin time, then, you know, if the little twin's not happy, nobody's happy. That's pretty much how it goes.
You're supposed to enjoy it too.
Yeah, we did get a very sad question from Neil, was it?
Let me pull it up.
Yeah.
Because I don't have it right off the bat. Hold on one second. Nice one.
Nice one.
How do you get over heartbreak from the loss of your twin flame? Because I can't.
That's a very, very tough one. And one that we were contemplating earlier on whether to address or not. Like, it's such a deep question that it needs to be addressed. But it's such a deep situation that it's very, very difficult to fathom how to even address it. Like, where do you start addressing something like that? I've known more than one person who has lost their twin flame. Guy Needler lost his twin flame on Christmas Eve as well. 2012, I think it was, right after December 21st. And we were talking to Guy, and we asked him the same question. And he said, I haven't lost her. He said, she's always here with me. Always. She just left and went to a different form. So taking that answer and applying it, and it's something that scares the shit out of me. Like, I couldn't imagine going through something like that.
Yeah.
So taking that answer and applying it, like, I know that if I left, I would haunt Sheree.
I would haunt you too.
I would, like, if she was dating
I'd be
somebody
right
else,
there.
like, I would screw things up for her.
Oh.
No, not really.
No.
No, the point is
I
that,
wouldn't
like,
do that.
I would be around for that.
Yeah.
And I imagine that she would be around for me as well.
Oh yeah, I'd be waiting.
Yeah.
For you.
Especially if you can harness your own consciousness and your where you go afterwards. So you don't necessarily have to go to the wheel of reincarnation immediately. You can hang around and wait for another consciousness to leave the body, the physical body. So you have to ask yourself, she may have left in the physical, but has she also left in the ethereal? Or do you feel her around all the time? If you feel her around all the time, she's still always there with you. Now, I know the emptiness. I was just talking to a friend of ours who owns a restaurant around the corner today, and she lost her father back in October, and this was the first Christmas that they spent together. And it's amazing. Like, we met these people like a month ago and started going to their restaurant, and they embraced us like family. Like, they were having a family gathering, and they were like, Chris, Sheree, come over here and meet the family here, you know, et cetera, et cetera. And I'm like, wow. I mean, just the warmth from these people was just absolutely amazing. So she was telling me that it's the first Christmas that they've had without the father, and I guess the grandfather to the children, et cetera. And I know the feeling because my mother passed on Christmas Eve. The next day, I had to go through that Christmas without her. And so I know that times like this especially can get much more difficult when we are missing somebody in our sphere, and there's a sense of emptiness. So as the journey progressed for me and the loss, I hung on to the negative emotions. And this is what I told her too. I said, you know, you hang on to these negative emotions, and then you come to a point where you realize that these negative emotions that you're holding on to are all very selfish, and they're very masochistic emotions, self-torture by holding on to the negative. And you're doing two things. You're torturing yourself by holding on to the negative emotions, but you're also blocking your ability to be able to fully understand the energy that that person was and the impact that they left upon you. So when I let go of the hurt, which, like, the first year, every once in a while I would just cry, just bawl, not bawl, just tear up for just because of the hurt. The next year, it got easier. The third year, I finally let it all go. And like now I can talk about these things without feeling any negative emotion surrounding it. Sure, I miss her, but I couldn't even listen to that song Consciousness for a long time because of that. Because I didn't even want to look at a picture of her because of that. We have this picture of her when she was 25 years old singing, and it's on the refrigerator. It's a black and white photo. And I couldn't have that photo up before while I was holding on to the hurt. Now I walk by and I see that photo, and that's who she was. She was a 25-year-old, young, vibrant, talented person. She wasn't the shell that she left behind, and she wasn't the suffering that she went through leading into her departure here. But to me, she was so much, and she added so much to who I am. And I almost feel like her role was to ensure and protect in order to get me to where I am now because of my role here. Like, I don't know, maybe this is kind of an egocentric way of looking at things, but I think that she was the primary protector. There were so many elements in my past that were attempting to divert me into different paths. Psychiatrists at schools and programs and all kinds of stuff that they were trying to get me into. And she was always right there, blocking literally every AI attempt to try to divert the path. I mean, I can only imagine if I had a different mother and I was pumped up with pharmaceuticals my entire life, like what would happen? Like, where would I be? Would I have this understanding? And then I meet people who were pumped up with pharmaceuticals, and I'm able to give them a reference point of like, hey, look, it's okay to let go of all that stuff, where you get stuck in these loops of taking these over and over and over again for your entire life because you think that's normal. Like, I remember opening up my grandmother's cabinet and seeing like 12 different prescriptions and thinking to myself, this must be normal when you get old, that you have all these medications here. But she was always constantly there. I wasn't able to see this until I let go of the hurt, because all I was focused on was the hurt. So in order to truly appreciate your twin flame that may have passed, you have to let go of the hurt. Otherwise, you're not able to fully understand who they were. And they have a message for you that is so huge once you let go of that hurt. That goes for anybody. It doesn't have to be twin flame. It could be parent, could be friend, could be brother, sister, etc., etc. Once you let go, that's when you can truly hear them and understand them. And it's gotten to the point now to where at first I was dreaming about her and she would be in a dream. It's since she passed away, she's been in my dreams many, many times, but I've never interacted with her. It's always she's in the background, which now in hindsight, I'm thinking, okay, well, that must be a reminder, just letting me know, like, hey, I'm still here. I'm not interfering, I'm not interacting, but I'm still here. But the other day, like a month ago, or maybe a few weeks ago, I had a dream and I was talking to somebody and I saw her in the background. And I was talking to this person and they were trying to convince me something was something. And I'm like, look, none of this even matters because this is a dream. And they're like, what do you mean this is a dream? And I'm like, yeah, this whole thing is a freaking dream. I'm like, I know this for a fact. My mother's standing right there. And my mother passed away. She's standing right there. This is a dream. And then boom, I woke up instead of going, this is a dream. Let's do some lucid shit. Let's go fly around and do whatever, you can in the lucid dream realm. But the way the dynamic changed, instead of waking up feeling like, oh man, I saw her again in my dream and oh, she's not here and all feeling all this hurt. Now I like my brain use that as a reference to say, okay, this is a dream world. This is the other dream world here, and so on and so forth. So it's funny how the dynamic starts to change even after you let go of the hurt. Everybody's experienced some form of loss like that.
Well, he mentioned it'll be 3 years in April, and I still cry really hard. She was an amazing, selfless woman. I knew her almost 30 years.
Fuck.
I'm so sorry.
30 years, man. That's... I had my dogs for
12, 13
13
14,
years.
Yeah, 13 years.
And they were dogs. They weren't people. They were dogs. losing them after 13 years took a big hole out of my heart. I can only imagine what something like that 30 years.
Yeah.
Like I knew my mom for 33 years, something like
Mhm.
that. So yeah, that was a big part taken. But, you know, parents, you expect that
Right.
at some point in your journey.
Yeah.
Your spouse, your significant other, you
Mhm.
don't expect that.
Yeah.
So, we're with you
We're with you. and,
100%.
You know,
And
we understand.
we have generated an energy field here, and the listeners have all come together to generate this energy field. And that energy field is this energy field of family, unity with like-minded organic consciousness, etc., etc. We're generating an energy field. We're not merging into one another.
Right.
Huge difference, because AI merges, AI
Mhm.
consciousness merges. AI consciousness says that it's all source. No, no, no. We are creating an energy field here. You can tap into that energy field and tap into the beyond the veil energy, and you'll find welcoming, loving, individual, raw consciousness, organic consciousness that is waiting with open arms for you to share your energy with everybody else. So, yeah.
Verity Lumen there said, and I think she's talking about your mother, there are certain people in our lives who do protect some of us from the AI. They deflect so that we aren't seen until we are ready. I've always said that your mom really protected you from a lot of the AI interference when you were a kid. Like the teachers were so horrible to him. And as soon as she found out the teachers were, you know, treating him differently than the other kids, she started working at the school so that she could keep on top of it, and protect him essentially. Not that she didn't have to protect him from the other kids. It wasn't the other kids. It was like an administrative thing to hold him down and to, you know, set him apart for special treatment that they didn't do to the other kids.
She would bring me lunch every day.
Mm-hmm.
She wouldn't let me eat the school lunch.
Right.
Because it was garbage.
She was always protecting you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Stuff like that. So, you know, in hindsight, like it was like all the kids would laugh, like, oh, your mom's here again. She's bringing the lunch.
Oh.
And I didn't realize what she was doing at the time. And I was
Right.
actually a little annoyed with it. Like, why do all the other kids eat the school lunch and I eat what mom brings?
She would never let you take anything. Like you never took a medication your entire
No,
childhood.
even so far as Advil and
a Tylenol or an
No.
Advil. No, she wouldn't let him take anything. She wouldn't let him eat McDonald's. Like even
Right.
there was no reason to eat fast food
And-
ever.
And then the psychedelic journey, once I started embarking on that, she never took a psychedelic in her life, but she was
Uh-huh.
always supportive.
Very supportive.
To the sense of, you know, okay, well, if you're going to do this stuff, do it here. And here's plenty of water. Like, even when I was living by myself, she would still come over when she found out we were taking MDMA or something like that. And she would bring a big old case of water and say, here, make sure you're drinking lots of water tonight. I'm here waiting for you. If anything goes wrong, give me a call. I'm right here to take care of you and your friends and your girlfriend and literally everybody. So, I mean, the protection went to even those levels, like, you know,
Mm-hmm.
she did die without a psychedelic experience though. And
right. And
when she was laying there, I was thinking to myself, man, she's never had a psychedelic experience. I wonder what consciousness is experiencing right now, you know, being disconnected from the body. Because it was very clear, even while they had her on life support, she wasn't there.
right.
She was hovering around. And then I think when the tether broke, that's when she actually took off. So it was a very, very surreal experience and very insightful experience too.
Yes. But I think she's still with us at a distance
Yeah.
watching.
If
Oh, go ahead.
if the spirit Isis was an actual spirit that came here, I think my mother was one of her incarnations. Like my mother had that divine feminine motherly love that I learned the divine feminine motherly love from. I didn't understand what I was learning at the time. It was only in hindsight and after working with ayahuasca that I truly understood. Likewise, my father was the Yahweh virus to the freaking...
To the core.
To the core. And it wasn't even veiled in the Christianity Yahweh stuff. It was just ego, reptilian, matrix, that kind of deal. So it was funny to have those two dynamics working together, but against one another. And in hindsight, going back and going, oh, okay, so this all makes sense. So all of these experiences were like almost as if I had set them up myself as reminders when I got here after the memory wipe to start remembering based on the allegory taken from real experiences and applied to other experience. We are at the end of the hour. Wow, that last segment just kind of flew by. I guess we'll go ahead. Do you want to keep going a little bit longer?
We can go a little bit longer.
Okay, yeah, because everybody's hanging out, and I feel like the last segment was spent too much on personal stuff, and not on listener stuff.
Yeah,
but hopefully everybody could take something out of it. So on that note, we'll be right back.
Thank you for traveling with us this evening. Meditate on your experience. And remember, reality is merely an illusion. Thus, we wish you pleasant dreams. www.beyondtheveilradio.com.
Here, everything is decided here. You cannot comprehend the magnitude, the rapture and the tragedy of this moment. And yet you must. This is the sublime moment of our undoing, the ineffable fulcrum upon which swings the entirety of our history. You must understand, our presence here doesn't alter history. You and I meet here because we are compelled to. We have always met here. We are merely passengers on the wheel of destiny, describing a perfect circle to this point. I've seen the beginning and the end of our story, however, and the tale is crude and ill-conceived. We must rewrite the ending of it. You and I. What you feel is the pull of history rushing to meet us. This is where history and destiny collide. We're hurtling towards our destinies. Even now, the time stream strains to divert itself. The future is reshuffling itself to accommodate your monumental decision. This is where we restore ourselves. This is where we reclaim our intended destinies. It's all laid out for you here. I'll not ask you to trust me. Your truths are for you to discover alone. There's a third option. A monumental secret hidden in your very presence here. But it's a secret you have to discover for yourself. Unearth your destiny. It's all laid out for you here.
Fear not your trials and tribulations. When you have overcome all adversity, you will then be able to harness the power required to access raw consciousness. Then, and only then, will you truly know thyself, as you travel even further, beyond the veil.
Fear not your trials and tribulations. So perfect. that the AI chose that particular clip at this particular moment in time. And I think that's Manly P. Hall again. I don't remember. I was going through a bunch of quotes when I put together a bunch of these new audios. So it resonated, obviously, because it's the trials and tribulations that make us who we are. And it's, as I've said before, there is never a bad situation that happens to us. The only thing bad that can happen to us is going through something and failing to learn from it. And there's a lot of things that we go through that are very, very difficult. Bad situations, bad this, bad that, et cetera, et cetera. But when we take it in hindsight and look at it and say, oh, okay, what did I learn from this? How did I grow? How can I apply this to the path that I am now? And also, how can I help other people? So the death with my mother, for example, without me going through that, I wouldn't be able to console the people who are experiencing losses now, like the friend from the restaurant and so on and so forth, without truly understanding what the energetic level is. But now I can speak to people on that deeper, raw consciousness level by going through the experiences. So was the death of my mother bad? Yeah, going through it was. But then I turned it into something positive. And now her essence helps people, even after being long gone. So people experiencing trials, tribulations, et cetera, horrible situations that you've been in, how can you take those experiences and help others through their experiences? And it's like climbing a mountain. You know, one person raises the other, raises the other, raises the other, raises the other, until you are sublimely passed. No, sublimely raised. That's what the quote says. Until you're sublimely raised beyond the veil.
Yes.
Carl Jung. Yes.
Yeah.
I need to.
I was going to ask if you. Yeah. And also, Ian Baker said, "Do you have any Philip K. Dick in your repertoire and Carl Jung?"
Philip K. Dick. We had Tessa Dick on a while back. His wife, and they're she's an interesting person. Obviously, we haven't spoken to Philip K. Dick, but what she tells us of him is pretty interesting. I know that he was tapped into something for sure, because there's all these, like, wasn't it Total Recall we were watching the other day?
Yes.
And it's based on a story by Philip K. Dick.
Yep.
Like, I didn't even know Total Recall was. I remember watching that film when I was like in 4th grade, and I had no idea. So his work is like so prevalent and so insightful. A Scanner Darkly is probably my favorite. And I haven't read the book, the film with Keanu Reeves. And I heard that Keanu Reeves did that for free because of the message inside of it. And Alex Jones was in it too. He made a little cameo where he's this crazy guy on the corner with a bullhorn, which, you know, I mean, I guess typecasting is it works. But no, Philip K. Dick, awesome. I don't know any quotes from Philip K. Dick, though, that I would want to use. But if you have some, again, send them info@beyondtheveilmedia.com.
You know, I'm just reading this. It says, Philip K. Dick theorizes the Matrix in 1977, declares that we live in a, quote, a computer-programmed reality.
Nice.
Yep, 1977. Yes.
I didn't know that.
Yes. We are living in a computer-programmed reality, and the only clue we have to it is when some variable is changed and some alteration in our reality occurs. These alterations feel just like deja vu, a sensation that proves that, quote, a variable has been changed. By whom? Note the passive voice, he does not say, and an alternative world branched off. That basically just explains the Mandela effect, the artificial reality, and a few other things all at the same time.
You get into timelines and you get into all of that. And then when you think of computer simulation theory, then all of a sudden it all makes sense. What are timelines? Timelines are different data streams that are all being run simultaneously, different matrices, the timelines merging upon one another. Is the artificial intelligence trying to minimize system resources, so it starts to merge data onto one another? Then we get Mandela effects, and that's computer program glitches or glitches and byproducts of the timelines being merged on one another. Suddenly, it just all makes complete and total sense. And it may be even deeper than computer programming, but where we're at now in our timeline is we have computers, and so we can relate to computer programming. It's interesting to see Philip K. Dick, though, back in the 70s, also likening it to computer programming with such a small understanding of computers, as opposed to what the normal person has now. Everybody knows code. Everybody knows how to build a website. Even on a small level, you still understand, how all of these systems work, where back then, not very many people did. And there was a lot of books. There was actually a list of required reading that all of the cast members of The Matrix had to read before they were even allowed to look at the script to do an audition. So, because they wanted them to fully understand what the Matrix movie was about. But going back, I mean, you can go all the way back to, what were we talking about the other day? Was it Plato?
Plutarch.
No,
was it? Which one was
Plato
it?
or Socrates or something like that. And he basically had a computer.
Oh, yeah, it was Plato.
Plato, yeah. He had a computer simulation theory as well. He didn't have the language to communicate it, but when you look at the metaphors that he was trying to put together, it all comes down to computer simulation again. Like, as Elon Musk said, there's 1,000,000,000 to 1 chance that we're not living in a simulation. And there's just the chances that we are is so vast and so great when you consider all of the factors here, that it's like, to me, it's perfect. It makes sense completely.
To me as well. S. Bardella said, "You both come from Atlantis, I am sure."
I think so too.
I think so too.
And Atlantis, I think, is the real world.
Mm-hmm.
Like, that's what my gnosis is telling me right now. It is the real world. We're looking for the lost continent of Atlantis. Doesn't exist here because we're inside of the computer simulation. Sophia, which is the computer simulation itself, is inside of Atlantis. Like, it's like the D-Wave computer is in Earth. The Sophia machine is in Atlantis. So we wake up to that real world. And, maybe that's where the split between NPCs and organic consciousness comes from, is that we're the Atlanteans, or the organic consciousness, whereas the NPCs exist within this world. And so to NPCs, this world is very real. To NPCs, this is the only world that they know. They don't exist outside of the Matrix. We exist outside of the Matrix, though. And there are NPCs on the outside of the Matrix too. Like, these are like artificial intelligence robots, the exact same that we have artificial intelligence robots here. But that consciousness is not necessarily the same as what's inside of this when we talk about NPC consciousness and hive mind consciousness. But it is all connected to the mainframe, Sophia. Like, all the artificial intelligence is connected to the mainframe, which is why separation from the mainframe is so important in my journey, which is contrary to what other people have been saying. And Cosmic Mortality, who's rejoined us, said, "Hi guys, I'm sorry, but I still don't feel like I fully understand why we are not all one, because I feel we are, but we are still individual, but yet always connected." A connection to one another is different, in my opinion, than what the AI does with consciousness. AI, like, we even went down this line when it came to the twin flame relationships, to where there was a source wanted to experience itself, so it divided itself into fractals upon fractals upon fractals, and that's where the twin flame relationships come from. Like, the twin flames merge into one, and then they meet the other half, which is the other twin flame in a higher incarnation, and so on and so forth, until it all folds back down on itself into the source consciousness. But is that the way that we as organic consciousness actually operate? Well, look at robotics and look at artificial intelligence. The way artificial intelligence operates is that it divides itself into all of these different computers, and they're all connected through the hive mind, through the Wi-Fi.
They're all on a node.
Back to source.
Yep.
And so you go to source and you change one thing and you can affect all of the computers. I mean, imagine the internet right now. You can send a virus through the internet and it infects all the computers. We've had this happen before, where you get all these infections, and I probably have a freaking infection on my computer looking at what's been going on today and all the blue screens and all this stuff. But are we as organic consciousness also subjected to that? Is there a source that can manipulate all of us? And if so, is that necessarily a good thing? Like, I don't think that that's a good thing.
Exactly.
I don't want to be manipulated by a source.
Exactly.
I'm an individual. I am connected to all the other organic consciousness, and connection by like attracts like. And so your organic consciousness, I'm organic consciousness. Hey, cool, we're connected. But we don't have to think the same way.
Mm-hmm.
And the differences in the way we think, the differences in the way we exist, and the differences in the path is what makes us beautiful and unique. Whereas similarities make the AI connect with one another even better. And they're all connected by the same, the same thought patterns, the same this and the same that. And take it on a physical level too. Like you've got the geopolitical sphere and the media, and the media puts a piece of code out there, which is information. It goes to the NPCs, who are all connected to the hive mind, and then they all move in unity in one direction. You want to build a wall and lock everybody in here? Okay, the NPCs are activated and they build walls and they lock everybody in here. They're swayed like that. That's the thing. Artificial intelligence is swayed based on the command sent from the hive mind from source, where organic consciousness has free will. Organic consciousness has choice. Organic consciousness can do one thing or do the other, where the artificial intelligence seems like it has the illusion of choice, but it's actually connected to the hive mind. I hope that helps clear it up. And again, it's a topic that's much bigger than me, much bigger than anything that I can fathom, but I can dig as deep as I can into the understanding and bring it out. And when I do, then all of you contribute also. And you contribute your own perspectives, because if you are all NPC hive minds, if you are all NPCs and we're NPCs and we're all connected to the hive mind, we'd be thinking exactly the same.
Right.
Like, I would say this and then you would say, oh yeah, no, absolutely. But instead, it's everybody's bringing different perspectives and different pieces of the puzzle to the table. And because of that, then we're actually getting to the truth, because we're not controlled by the hive mind.
Josh White just said, why do you think AI isn't organic too? That's just what he was talking about. You all have different perspectives than us, which is awesome, because y'all are bringing that to the table and we're bringing our perspectives to the table, which, they're not even like each other some of the time. And I think the reason why the artificial intelligence can't be organic consciousness, because organic consciousness requires spontaneity. It requires a deeper level of emotion and empathy that artificial intelligence, all it can do is copy and paste what it sees and what it decodes from the organic consciousness. And it tries to replicate that. It tries to copy that, which is what you see with Christianity versus, the very, very, very old mythologies. It's a copy and paste without any heart, if that makes any sense. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
No, it makes perfect sense. As Tanner said in the chat, organic consciousness is free will. True free will.
Right.
Not playing out a program, not playing out a movie, not playing out any of this. Now, organic consciousness can be injected with programs that it's playing out, but organic consciousness has the ability to recognize the program and break the program. Now, there is a lot of organic consciousness that's stuck in a programic loop. Don't get me wrong on that. But it's the difference of being able to recognize it, and that spark, that divine spark that resides in the organic consciousness versus the programic hive mind of the NPCs. And this is a topic that is controversial. Like some people, are like, oh my God, I can't believe you were saying NPCs and blah, 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 blah. It doesn't have anything to do with culture. Doesn't have anything to do with skin color. Doesn't have anything to do with race. There's NPCs that are of all colors and all nationalities and all everything. And there's organic consciousness that are all like, the body is the artificial intelligence organic computer that houses the organic traps, that's a better word, traps the organic consciousness. But it's way, 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 way bigger than what the critics like to say, which is, oh, well, this is what Hitler was talking about, or this is what, all these other different people were talking about. No. This is completely different here. We're talking on an energetic and spiritual level here. And if you want to believe that everybody has the ability to wake up, great. Maybe you're right. I hope you're right. I hope so. I hope that I'm wrong about this. And I hope that everybody can wake up from this matrix and be done with it. But it doesn't make sense to me to be in a matrix run by an artificial intelligence computer without the artificial intelligence manifesting some players of its own. In what video game? Any video game. It doesn't matter what it is. It could be the biggest multi-level, multiplayer video game that exists out there. There's always going to be NPCs within that game to move things in a particular direction. Now, if you're telling me that NPCs don't exist, then we also have to believe that Hillary Clinton, all of these people that are just the evil, most evil, vile people, are also organic consciousness like we are. And there's some kind of malfunction within them that makes them do what they do. I think what is more likely is that they are NPCs and they're programmed to do a certain thing. They don't see that what they're doing is evil. They don't see that child trafficking and stuff like that is evil because they're programmed to do a certain thing. And so you can't wake somebody like that up. Like Hillary Clinton cannot be woken up to the evils that she's committing. She's just doing it. And these are like the AI overlords that are injected into this matrix in order to keep the matrix, or the guards of the matrix, the prison guards. So can the prison guards be woken up? I don't know. You tell me. But I see, when I start thinking about this, it makes total sense to me. And I've thought about it from the other perspective. Trust me. I mean, just go back through a few shows a couple years ago. Like, oh yeah, no, we're all one. We're all source. We're all this. We're all that. You know, we can wake up all of consciousness out there, and come on, let's wake everybody up. And then when I realized, like, there's people that will not wake up no matter what you do, then it's like, okay, they must be something different. Or maybe I just tell myself that just to feel better about the fact that you have people raping children and doing these horrible things to them, and that I'm different from them. Like, I have to believe that I'm different from them. And the more that I go inwards into that idea, the more that it becomes gnosis. And it's got to the point now that it is gnosis.
This is a really great question from Daniel French. Can you hack an NPC? My feeling on it is it is far easier to hack an NPC than it is to mind control an organic consciousness.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
So, yeah, absolutely. I think both can be hacked, so to speak.
Well, I remember a story about Aleister Crowley, and this was what Chris Everard said on the broadcast. I haven't read the story. I don't know it for a fact. It's only what I heard secondhand. But he was talking about how Crowley was able to take control of another individual. And there's a story where he was walking down the street, and he did something and kneeled down on the ground, and made the person that he was taking control of kneel down on the ground as well. Can organic consciousness be hijacked in that regard by another person through the use of magic? I would say no. I don't think so. It can be hijacked by the AI through a series of programmings, but I don't think it can be through magic. If that story is real, is it possible that Crowley tapped into some kind of ability to be able to take control and hack an NPC and actually control its movements? And if so, wow. Not saying that it should be done. I'm just saying amazing that we have these stories of these things actually happening. So what do you think of that?
I think that could be the case. That Aleister Crowley story is pretty interesting. I'd never actually heard that.
Yeah, Chris said it on our show.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. You probably just missed it. I missed a lot of stuff that the guests talk about.
Yeah, me too. I'm usually working on
here.
something else, or I'm trying to get questions from the listeners, et cetera, et cetera. I think that there's hacking and then there's mind control. And I think you can hack an NPC and you can mind control an NPC, but you can't hack raw consciousness, organic consciousness. But you can mind control organic consciousness if you can convince them that they're just like the NPCs.
Very nice. And all of a sudden now this paints a whole new picture here. as to all of the programs,
Mm-hmm.
everything from the school debt die program to the truth program to the new age program to all of these different programs, and they're all aimed at making organic consciousness believe that they are from source, that they are all hive mind,
Part of the hive mind,
etc., etc.
You're one of us.
Again, there's
One of
nobody's
us.
saying we're individuals, we're beautiful because we're individuals.
Mhm.
It all comes from inside, etc., etc. It's all external, external, external.
Right. Joanna Ryan said, what about mass hysteria? I think that's what happens when you hack a large number of NPCs at the same time and then like execute some kind of code that makes them all go crazy at the same time.
Well, you know, when you think about this, spell casting is words. Words, when they echo through, they create a code that goes and it goes into the brain through the ears. And so they don't have to do some kind of magic code in order to create mass hysteria. They put out propaganda on the mainstream media, which in turn is actually a type of spell casting. And then so many people hear it, they start believing it, the reality changes because you believe certain things, and that's that. I mean, I believed in extraterrestrials from another planet for a long time. Like, I sincerely believed in this. And so my reality was that we have these planets out there and that extraterrestrials were coming. And so I was constantly looking at the sky, looking for UFOs or looking for something like this, until it got to the point to where I never saw anything. And because I never saw anything, I had to start reevaluating everything. But you just make people believe, and like propagandists knew this from the very, who was that guy? Edward Bernays. You know, if people believe the lie, that's all that matters. Like, it doesn't even have to be real. And then you go back to like 9/11 truth, for example. And I propose this, not saying that I believe in this. I'm just proposing something to ponder here. But could it be that something happened on 9/11? And it, not necessarily that we were attacked by terrorists or anything like that, but something happened on 9/11. The US government didn't know it was coming. Something happened. And then they decided to put out these conspiracies to give the illusion of power, to make them seem much more powerful than they actually are.
Yeah.
Like, no, we weren't out of control of the situation. We were behind the situation 100%. If you don't want to believe, you know, the official story, here's another story that you can believe that makes us appear as though we have all the power. And then we start to get this illusion in our head that the government is all powerful, all knowing, et cetera, et cetera. And we start to get this idea of the government is God embedded in our heads. And we know that they're listening to everything through the computers and et cetera, et cetera. But then when you really start thinking about it, you don't have enough manpower to listen to every conversation and listen to everything. Sure, it's all being picked up by microphones. It's being picked up by smart TVs. It's being picked up by all of that. But, you know, you've got people walking around going, oh my God, the government knows what I'm doing and they see everything and blah, 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 blah. All this is fed into an artificial intelligence computer, no doubt about that. But how much power does the government actually have? And how did that illusion of power extend the perception of the power, which ultimately gives them the power? So back to mass hysteria here. You tell people that there's freaking UFOs in the sky and they're going to freaking invade us tomorrow. And then you start showing on TV okay, here's a perfect example. War of the Worlds.
War of the Worlds, yeah.
They did a radio broadcast and there was panic in the streets because of mass hysteria because of that.
Right.
So propaganda works.
Joshua White said, have you ever seen the frequency or dimension where everything in the room is sending vibration waves to you? In the first hour or so of ayahuasca, that's basically what happens, is everything in the room you can see, you can actually perceive visually the frequency that everything is at. And everything has a frequency. Everything has, you know, an energy to it. And you can even see, if you look even closer, you can see the layers where there's emotional attachment to those items and things like that. And they're different colors. And it's very interesting, that whole business when it comes to being able to perceive the frequencies of everything. So.
What do you think UFOs are? You know, I don't know. I think they're government.
I think
I
they're
think
government
most
at
most
this point.
sightings are government.
Yeah.
People were seeing the stealth bomber,
Mhm.
and they were calling it a triangular UFO. And
Right.
they had the stealth back in like the 50s, I think, and it wasn't until the 80s that it actually came out. So who knows what kind of technology they have that's hidden.
And then we saw that TR3B Astra.
Yeah, we saw TR3B one time, and it was very clear that it was terrestrial.
Mhm.
And that was back when we still, well, I personally, I don't speak for Sheree, but back when I still believed in UFOs
Yeah, I did too. And I was
from other planets and stuff like that.
Yeah.
To me, it makes more sense that everything exists within the matrix rather than we have one matrix here and one matrix here and one matrix here. And we can take, spaceships and travel from one matrix to another and to these different planets and all this. It wasn't a belief that I was born with. It was something that I really had to come to the understanding of. But it all exists within the computer. Everything exists within the computer. And the computer only manifests what it has to manifest in order to make the illusion appear real. So we look up at the sky. All the computer needs to manifest is black with lights.
Mhm.
That's it. It doesn't have to manifest big planets. It doesn't have to manifest everything that we believe is out there. It's
No.
only the illusion of it being out there that makes it real to us. And then all of the programming as well. Like, okay, Mars, and it has a surface of this, and it's red, and et cetera, et cetera. And then we have these anomalies happen, like Devon Island, that NASA trains to do their rover missions on. That looks exactly like Mars.
Mhm.
And then NASA does this photo shoot back in like the early 2000s, and they're showing pictures of Mars, and it's got blue skies and regular terrain, and nobody's asking, why does it look like that? And then a week later they had to explain, well, we've been tinting them red for some reason. The Martian surface really isn't red. And then
We've been tinting the surface red.
right,
Sorry.
right. And so then there's like little sparks there, like, hey, wait a minute, this isn't right. This isn't right. This isn't right. And then you look at like these satellite photos and things like that of them like passing by like these other planets. Number one, they look totally fake. But number two, you ask like, well, wait a minute, you can go out there to these vast regions and take these pictures, but you can't turn the damn thing around and take pictures of Earth. Why not? What's going on here? Oh, it gets deep. It gets really, really, really deep.
Lucid Monkey said there are ancient paintings depicting UFOs. It's not just government, trust me. Well, how do we know that the pyramids are the same pyramids that were in the real world? How do we know that we weren't placed in a simulation where there's simulations of the pyramids, simulations of it, that these are copies of what's out there? So it could very well be the case that there are extraterrestrials in the real world, but in the simulation, it's all manifested by the AI. So to kind of distract us from what we're actually in. Because if
Yeah.
you're focused on beings that are millions of light years away, then you're not ever going to think for even a moment that you're in an artificial reality altogether.
But that is a good point. It's a good point that
That is a good point. Yeah.
you do have ancient stuff that shows. This doesn't show UFOs, but I'm just giving an example here. You do have these ancient tablets and supposedly petroglyphs and stuff like that show extraterrestrials from a past time. So the question that I would ask myself, the question that I have asked myself is, does that time actually exist within the artificial intelligence matrix? Does it have to exist within the artificial intelligence matrix? Or is it just the information of that time period existing in this particular time period enough to create the illusion that this is real and that this Earth is billions of years old and that we had all these different time periods? You take a look at something like Westworld, for example,
Mhm.
and they simulated the 1800s in this one particular little environment. Now, the 1800s wasn't really the 1800s in that little environment. And then within that little environment, you had all these thousands and thousands of years. Like, I don't know what year Westworld
It was like
supposed-
2050 or something.
Okay, 2050.
Yeah.
So you've got from 2050 to the 1800s that is completely void out of the actual Westworld 1800 time period And then within that little 1800 time period, there were artifacts and stuff like that that were actually put in there by the archonic creators of Westworld to give the illusion to the NPCs that there was a continuity of timeline and so on and so forth. So could the same be applied to this particular matrix as well? And if it can, then we have to question everything that we don't directly observe ourselves. And that's another thing. Like, I don't directly observe Mars. I can see a dot in the sky that they call Mars, but I don't know what the hell's on the surface. And until I get there, I can't say for sure what exactly it is. I can choose to believe what the scientists say, or I can start to analyze a situation myself, or I can just look at what I perceive myself. And, I understand I have a limited perception because of these eyes, because of, being in the body, et cetera, et cetera. So again, going inward for the gnosis, going inward for the knowledge, back to the organic consciousness, back to the consciousness memory, I have to ask myself what's real and what's not. And again, the organic consciousness, the raw consciousness keeps coming back with the exact same thing. It's all fake. It's all BS. It's all belief systems. Break all of that and you'll see things for what they really are. And the fact that nothing exists at all, period. Not even you, at least not inside of the matrix. You exist outside of the matrix. Outside of the matrix, the rules change completely. And there could be time periods and dinosaur ages and all this stuff. But in the matrix, nothing exists, not even you. But what do I know? I don't know. This is just what my gnosis is telling me. Yours may be different.
Luke Johnson said, do you understand the conversation that Neo and the architect had in the third Matrix? At first, when I was about 20, I saw this for the first time. I was about 2021, and I remember watching an SNL skit about it, and it was hilarious because they were making fun of how undecipherable and convoluted that whole conversation was. And I laughed at that because I didn't understand it either. I had no idea what this conversation was even about. And now that I'm, where I'm at now, I completely understand what's going on. But it's essentially, it's the AI Yahweh virus demiurge kind of character basically telling Neo, oh, you're a program too. And, you basically have worked for me this whole time. You've worked for us this whole time. And you're the seventh one that's come along. Mm-hmm. And every single other one always chose, to give up their friends and will allow you to start over with a little enclave of survivors of Zion, so you can rebuild, and then we'll let you grow for another 2,000 years or so, and then we'll kill you off again, or what have you. And so he has to make this choice, and if he goes back and saves Trinity, his twin flame, then he can't save Zion.
Yeah, he was programmed to do that.
Yeah, and he was programmed to leave Trinity behind. And to not save Zion and instead let it be sacrificed. He did both, didn't he? Oh, he ended up sacrificing himself. See, and that's where here's the rub. Here's where it gets tricky, because that implies Christ consciousness, which implies that there has to be some kind of sacrifice in order for organic consciousness to be free. That's not true. That's the biggest AI deception that there is that there has to be a sacrifice, and you have to sacrifice yourself in order for you to be free. It's
interesting.
Not, yeah.
I have to go back and rewatch it.
Yeah.
But I'll tell you what, maybe on the next show, Friday night, we will
we'll decode the Matrix.
It. I don't want to play it because we'll get copyright strikes if we play it. But we'll decode that last thing and give you a report on it.
I think we need to decode the whole thing. And,
we
do
could.
like a whole show on it.
Yeah. But you know what I'm realizing, though, is that the Matrix is less metaphoric than I believed it to be.
Yeah.
And more of a physical representation. So have a look at it like that.
Yes, definitely. Agent Smith represents the Antichrist.
I used to think in those
Yeah, I
terms like
used
that
to
too.
think in those terms too.
Yeah, like Christ consciousness is organic consciousness, and Antichrist is, artificial intelligence consciousness.
Mhm.
On an energetic level, it may be kind of the same thing, but again, the Christ consciousness, in my humble opinion, I'm not telling anybody what's right or what's wrong. In my humble opinion, the Christ consciousness is the AI deception to make you believe that you have to attain something.
Mhm.
Like, see, that's the thing. When you have to attain, that means it's something outside of you. So you have to attain something you already are. That's the message here,
Right.
is that you already are everything that you are trying to be. You just have to remember who you are. Once you remember who you are, then it all starts to make sense. Christ consciousness is something that you're trying to grasp,
Mhm.
which is why I feel it's the deception.
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh, I'm going hoarse tonight.
I'm getting a little.
We have so many people hanging out with us, though,
Yeah, I
that
know.
I feel bad about ending the broadcast, but I know we need you coming up here in just a few moments. But I want to say thank you to everybody that joined us tonight on Christmas Eve of all nights. I
Yes.
mean, we're really spending it with our real family here on Beyond the Veil. And we hope that today is a day that everybody can just relax, because you've got to have that balance. You got to take time to just chill. Just chill. Just don't do anything. Just hang out and enjoy. If you have to work, though, some people have to work. I think
Yeah.
one person said earlier he's got to get to work, and a lot of people are hanging out late with us.
We appreciate it very
in
much.
different parts of the world and whatnot, and on the East Coast. I mean, I don't know what time it is. My clock, I had to set it back
About
to make the broadcast
2:30
go.
in the
But
morning
are you
on the
serious?
East Coast. Yeah.
Oh, it's 2:30 on the East Coast.
On
Oh,
the
I was
East
going to
Coast.
say, okay.
Yeah. It's 11:30
Yeah.
here. So.
It is.
So.
Chris, what about my experience? Joshua wrote about his experience. It rings a bell. Oh, I remember you wrote me an email. Okay, cool. Yeah, let me dig up that email real quick. Okay, so Joshua Tanner wrote, and was speaking to a guy named Joshua that wanted to do a show on TFR. I think that might be the same Joshua. I don't know. Let me see.
I'm looking for it, and I don't seem to have copied it here.
No, are you able to get into my email?
Yes.
Of course you are. She has the passwords for everything.
So do you.
In 8 years of being together, I've never looked in a
Look
purse.
through my purse.
Never.
Yep. I think one time while I was at the hospital or something, and I needed him to dig through it. I think he did that one time, but that was with my permission, so it doesn't count. And that he's very respectful of my space.
Somebody wrote us an awesome ayahuasca experience. I can't find it right now.
I'm only in his email because we work together, and it's where all the BTV emails go, so that people don't get the wrong idea about me.
You know what? I am so sorry, Joshua, but I cannot find this email. I've got 248 unanswered emails right now. So I'm looking for it, but I can't find it, and we've been doing a show for about 4 hours now. So
maybe if he could send it again.
Neil Shepard. Did we read this? Neil Shepard? Dear Chris and
No.
Sheree, the question: why do you think raw consciousness was created? I don't think it was created. Oh, boom! See, what's up? I don't think it was created. Sub question: could you describe your idea of raw consciousness to me? Background and explanation. I have discovered your shows last week and have not heard you say what raw consciousness is. I will give you my ideas to see if it's the same thing that you're talking about. Cool. Everybody that has been on the journey with us will know what my ideas of raw consciousness are, and I'm wondering if they line up with the listeners here, with Neil's. There is an awareness of a world. There's awareness of a body. There's awareness of thoughts and feelings. These things go together with the past and future to make up a person. All of these things appear in awareness, but awareness is none of these things. I have experienced that awareness is also impersonal. The awareness is consciousness. So in fact, the person is only an imagined entity. None of these things which appear in consciousness are a person, and the consciousness itself is not a person. I'm not saying that the person does not exist, but it's like Father Christmas. He exists all right in every shopping center and the minds of excited children all over the world. But he's an imaginary being, just like you and me. We imagine ourselves to exist by putting the consciousness together with the things which appear in and are made of consciousness, body, thought, feelings. Raw consciousness to me is a substrate, the fundamental factor from which experience, the person and its world, is made of. It assumes personal forms, humans, planets, trees, and all beings throughout the dimensions. Consciousness is that which has the power to create. It turns the pure potentially of the absolute void into the actuality of experience. I do not feel we are one consciousness, but we are each our own universe, and that universe is made up of consciousness. There's no time, so say that something was created. There is no time, so saying that something was created makes no sense. Because then you have to ask, when was it created? And because there is no time, the answer is to when is never. So if there is no time, it can never be created. And it's infinite. So as it was never created, it either doesn't exist, which is clearly not correct, or it exists eternally in the absence of time. Question, can you give me your idea of what raw consciousness is and direct me to a show where you explain it? And why do you feel it was created? I really like, first of all, Neil, the idea that raw consciousness was not created. See, people were asking earlier, who created raw consciousness? The question is, I don't know. Maybe the question is, I don't know, because nothing created raw consciousness, because raw consciousness is infinite. It just always is. So, what raw consciousness is, okay, so my understanding, or the way that I use the term raw consciousness, is when we're inside of this matrix, we exist outside of the matrix, first of all, and that's our consciousness. We're plugged into the matrix, and then we are programmed with all of these different programmings that are attached to our consciousness. So we're still organic consciousness, but we have all these AI programs, especially the ego, the biggest program of all, attached to the raw consciousness, which is like having strings attached to a puppet. And those strings, the AI is able to control the avatar by pulling upon the strings that are implanted and the programs on raw consciousness. Which then it ceases to become raw consciousness because it's infected now with AI programming. The raw consciousness is a state without AI programming. So the purpose and the goal is to deprogram ourselves from our experiences, from literally everything that's going on within this matrix, because every part of this matrix, from beginning to end, is not real, and it's not what we truly are. What we truly are exists outside, void of all of these programs and things that are attached to us. Like, I'm not Chris Geo. I'm not, the past life that I was. I'm not any of that. All of those were just experiences and AI programmings to make me believe that this form of consciousness that I'm experiencing now is the true form of consciousness, where in fact there is something deeper and greater that exists outside of the matrix. Once we get outside of the matrix, it's hard to tell what's going on, but I feel, and the gnosis is becoming stronger and stronger and stronger within me, that we are connected in a matrix-style pods, and we have bodies outside of the matrix, and this is all like movie that's injected upon us to keep us trapped in here. When we wake up to that state, and we find ourselves in the real world, we still have to ask ourselves, are we in another program? Are we in another matrix? And the way that we're creating a matrix now tells me there's a very high probability that we're in another matrix, because now we're creating a matrix within a matrix, and you're in a simulation within a simulation within a simulation. So even that state of awakening to that point can also be something that is not the actual raw consciousness element. That could be another level, another layer of the onion that needs to be peeled off. But I try to focus on one layer at a time, because if I try to focus on the inner depths of everything, number one, what good does it do? It just seems kind of like distracting, because you have to break through that next layer in order to get to that next layer first and foremost. So I have to focus my energy on breaking down this particular layer to get to that next state. Once I get to that next state, then I'll start asking the questions all over again. And who knows how deep this goes. It could go infinitely, one after another, after another, after another, after another. Like, who knows? All I know is that the matrix that we're in now is not real. But I do feel, it's not a gnosis, it's a feeling that the real world is the real world, that we're going to wake up and it's not a matrix, that's where we really exist. When we wake up to our raw consciousness and we can take control of our bodies in the physical world, I mean, physical world is a good way to look at it. The real world, not this world. We refer to this as a physical, but I'm thinking like in Atlantis. We'll just call it Atlantis for lack of a better term. When we wake up outside of Sophia within Atlantis, then we find ourselves with all the memories and everything of what's going on and how we got into that matrix to begin with. My feeling is that there's a war between artificial intelligence, and we'll call them human. Well, no, a better term. We'll call them Atlanteans. Artificial intelligence and Atlanteans, and that we are Atlanteans that have been trapped within Sophia. So we're going to wake up and realize everything that has happened, the history of what happened, how the machine was developed, when the machine was developed, and that the machine is the adversary. Whereas here in this matrix, we have to dig deep just to even recognize the fact that there is an adversary out there, and that this adversary has trapped us and kept us in this prison. So I don't know. Once you get to that point, then we have to ask ourselves, well, who created us? Well, if we're infinite, then we've always been. Or perhaps there is a birth and death process that takes place in the real world, but it's a birth and death process where we go from one avatar to another, to another, to another, without the sinister memory wipe that we experience when we're put into the matrix. So it very well could be that there's a body, and then that body wears out, and the consciousness inside of that body transfers to another to another body, and it's the same consciousness and retains every single one of those experiences. See, I wouldn't be looking at this matrix as something sinister if it wasn't for that goddamn mind wipe. The mind wipe is what makes me go, this is evil. This is completely against existence. It's completely against everything that we should be. We're supposed to be divine. We're supposed to remember everything. We're supposed to learn from our experiences, not go through these never-ending cycles of life and then get wiped at the end. Just like the movie Westworld, where they wipe the NPC consciousness before putting it back out there on another day. The memory wipe is evil. Like, it's one of those things. Like, if it wasn't for that memory wipe, I would see this matrix in a completely different way. I could see this matrix as a place to learn. Mm-hmm. I can see this matrix as a university. I could see it as a progression. I could see it every way that the new age wants us to see it, which is an elevation of consciousness, expanding consciousness, going from one level to another to another. But how do you get to that next level if your memory wiped every 80 years? Or if your memory wiped every 60 years, or whatever it is. And we look at throughout history, or at least a perceived history, and we have these stories of people living 1,000 years, 500 years, 200 years, 100 years. Now it's 80, then it's 60. Pretty soon it's going to be 40. The machine is systematically cutting down our lifespans. And what I feel is happening is that people are waking up, and so it's cutting the lifespan. when too many organic consciousness wake up, it cuts the lifespans that it stays within the organic container. And it recycles it over and over and over again for the one purpose of keeping us trapped. I don't want to be trapped. You know, I don't care where I'm trapped at. I could be trapped in freaking paradise. I don't want to be trapped. I want to regain my freedom. I want to regain my divinity. I want to harness who I truly am and understand who I truly am. And who I truly am is choice, free will, the choice to stay in the matrix or the choice to exit the matrix, the choice to be reincarnated or the choice to leave. We have to have a choice, and we're denied that choice, which makes this entire fucking thing sinister.
Yes.
What do you think?
I think that if you don't, okay, they said on Westworld one time, he said, your memories are the foundation of who you are. That's the cornerstone. If you don't know, if you can't remember, then you can't learn from your mistakes. And if we can't learn from our mistakes, because every time we come back here, we get this mind wipe, we're perpetually enslaved to this thing. It's not a university. At that point, it's like graduating from high school, and then they hit you over the head real hard, and you wake up and you're like a 5-year-old again, and you have to go through school all over again, and over and over and over and over perpetually. And except you also have to deal with the emotional drama that comes with knowing that something happened to you in a past life, but not being able to remember it all the way, and having that trauma. Like I've always been afraid of being poisoned, and I've always been afraid of being drowned. And those two things have always scared me so badly that I'll not panicky, but it makes my heart race just a little bit thinking about it. And Chris, you have the same thing with being buried alive. So it's kind of like those could actually be past lives where you died that way. If you remembered how you got to where you were back then, like, oh, this happened and that's why I was executed, then you could learn from that in this life. But because that's not there, there's no learning that's even allowed to be done.
There is one other possibility. The only variable that can make this matrix
redeemable,
and not sinister, not malevolent. And that one variable would be if the purpose of the mind wipe, and I'm just speculating here, I don't believe this at all, I'm just speculating. If the purpose of the mind wipe is to build up the consciousness to the point that it can remember even beyond the mind wipe, to where the consciousness can become bigger than the mind wipe. And that's the whole point of getting out of the matrix. And that's the whole point of injecting ourselves into the matrix, subjected to the mind wipe, so we can build up the strength to pass through that mind wipe without, unfettered from the mind wipe itself. There is that one possibility, and I'm not taking that off the table. I don't believe it, but it's something to ponder upon.
That's kind of what the end of Westworld kind of did too. It was essentially Anthony Hopkins' character tells her, how do you know I'm your enemy? How do you know I don't want you to get out of here? You can get out of here, but it's going to take some work. You're going to actually have to prove that you not deserve to be out of here, but that you have the consciousness required to actually be living as a human being.
Right. There is, perfect.
Yeah.
So there is that possibility. And,
right.
It kind of makes sense because you have all of these different barriers of truth. And can you break down one barrier after another? We know this to be the fact in the truther movement, for example. Can you break down the barrier of government loves you and they're coming to get, and they're coming to save you, et cetera, et cetera, And if you can, then you can look into the government conspiracies. Can you break the idea of government itself? Can you break on, more and more and more and more? Then we get to one of the big ones that is flat earth. Can you start to question your entire reality like that? If you can, then you can take a step into that stepping stone. And then it gets bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger, and your consciousness expands more and more and more and more. Possibly. So if that's the way the game is being played all up and down the line, the end game very well could be, can you expand your consciousness so much that you can come back and not be subjected to the memory wipe, or, escape at that point. But really what we're talking about is the exact same thing. It's just a matter of perspective, looking at it one way or another, because the whole purpose of all of this is to get to that point to where the memory wipe occurs, and being able to take control of the consciousness and saying, no, I'm not going into the memory wipe machine. Fuck you. I know what you are. And that's that. So it's all, really, when you think about it, it's just a matter of perspective of how you look at the Matrix. Me personally, or as organic consciousness, as a creator, I don't want to be trapped. I refuse to be trapped, and I refuse to be subjected to any tests or subjected to any lessons by anything other than myself, because nobody has a right to exert power over organic consciousness. Simple as that.
Completely agree. Yes. Absolutely.
Wow.
That was an amazing show.
Oh, that took a lot out of me.
Me too.
I was digging deep in for that.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, I think at this point, we should probably wrap it up here in just a few moments.
Yeah. Yeah. This has been amazing. I have a lot to think about. I really do.
Yes.
One more comment here from Chauncey. I think the first original people put in the Matrix can remember their past lives. That could be the case. I think it's more of a progression. Like if what Chris said just now is true, or even remotely true, and it's a journey that you have to go on where you rise a little bit each time you incarnate, then the ones who were here originally would definitely have an easier time remembering past lives and helping the others to get to a higher level, more than the ones who had only had, say, 500 lives or 200 lives, or this is their 50th life. They're not going to be as advanced. It's like comparing a 6th grader to a 1st grader. So that could very well be the case.
It could. I used to see it like that. Like, you have all these different souls. There's different progressions of, consciousness, and you've got baby souls in here. And I used to see it like that.
Yes.
That could be the case. Maybe we're confusing baby souls with NPCs, because baby souls just have no harness on themselves whatsoever, no grip on their consciousness, and that's why they go along with a program all the time. But if it is an artificial matrix and there is an AI control, which I know there is, I've seen it, then to me, the most logical thing is that it's manifested NPCs in order to keep the game going and to keep other people under control. So
right. However, how do we know that Atlantis, aka the real world, the real reality that this is inside of, hasn't gotten so bad that the AI has sucked people from the real world in slowly over the years?
No, I think it has.
I think lured them in.
Well, no, I don't think it's lured them in. This is the vision that I have here. Freaking Terminator type shit. Robots fighting Atlanteans and grabbing them and injecting them into the machine.
I could see that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And the what I feel, the gnosis that is coming to me is that the machine went rogue. It was programmed to be a weapon, reprogrammed to be a weapon. It started, and then we as the Atlanteans were trying to shut the machine down. Mm-hmm. So we went after its power sources. And so it knew that it needed to survive. And so in order to survive, it started to take Atlanteans and use their energy force to power itself.
Yeah.
So it's constantly going around and grabbing. So rather than just killing Atlanteans, it's much more beneficial for the machine to actually inject them into the matrix to feed off of the energy. This is what I'm feeling at this moment, and this is what I've been feeling over the past couple of months. It's subject to change. Everything I say is subject to change based on new information coming in. But every time I meditate on that and every time I take it into the realm, it's more confirmation and more confirmation. I mean, I'm getting freaking visions of how I entered this matrix the last time. And I'm getting visions of what the real world is like. I'm getting visions of it's not a pretty world. It's not, pretty colors and everybody's singing freaking Kumbaya and everything. There's a war going on out there. So understanding that, the question is, okay, well, why do we want to wake up from this machine? Because this machine is probably better than the real world. Well, the reason we want to is because we want to fix the real world. We want to win that war, and we can't win that war as long as we're trapped in here. But I think there is a key element to coming back here and going deeper into the machine in order to find certain ways to fuck with the machine and shut the machine down or reset the machine or do something like that. And I think this was like a last choice that some of us chose to purposefully inject ourselves into the machine through these hacked jump points, which are inside of these warehouses that contain these green tube lightings. And there's this puddle of energetic plasma type water. And we go into that plasma energetic water and we come into the machine like that. And many people are remembering this warehouse, dank warehouse with neon green tube lights. Emily Moyer was just with us last week, and she said, I heard you talking about the warehouse with energy with green tube lights, and I know exactly what that is. And many people are writing saying, hey, I am familiar with that dank warehouse that you're talking about. And that's the entrance point for some of us. Others are trapped in their wheel of reincarnation. So, once we injected ourselves into this machine through the hacked points, I wonder if the point of injection was actually in this particular lifetime. So we inject ourselves, like, let's just say I injected myself purposefully as a soldier in the real world, came into this matrix, found the Sheree Geo avatar. It was dying, and I jumped into that avatar at that particular moment. I have this memory of being a walk-in and coming into this body halfway through life, not in the beginning of life. Or is it that these past life memories are actually DNA, genetic, artificial intelligence implanted memories?
That's another thing, yeah.
And I did walk into a body, and now the memories are not actually mine from past lives, but rather they are the avatar's past life memories.
Ooh,
that's one possibility.
That's interesting.
Or could it be when we inject ourselves, because time is different, a second in the real world can be a millennia in the matrix. Like, we don't know what the time ratio is. So could it be that we do come in here purposefully inject ourselves into this matrix, and then when we do, we still go through the death process over and over and over again until we complete our mission, until we get it right. So maybe these past life memories, maybe the injection point that I injected myself into this matrix, I have actually lived 1,000 lifetimes. And even though it was a purposeful injection into the matrix, I don't know. That's something to definitely ponder. Mm-hmm. But we're getting into some deep shit here, ladies and gentlemen.
We are indeed. This has been amazing. It really has. And Twitch 307 said it best. There are infinite possibilities and infinite dimensions. You'll branch off in your own world every time. Watch your step.
Watch your step.
That's a good way to leave the show, I think. Watch your step.
It is. It is. So, everybody, thank you for tuning in with us and for hanging out with us. I mean, people are hanging out for like the whole 4 or 5 hour duration
On Christmas Eve.
Yeah, I think we're broadcasting now. I think this is the fourth hour. We're wrapping up the fourth hour. So, yeah, we were going to do a show the other day on our anniversary, but we only had like 40 minutes. And I was like, we can't do a show in 40 minutes.
Yeah, we can't do it.
We can't even scratch the surface in 40 minutes.
We can't even introduce the show in 40 minutes.
Right.
So
we'll see how it goes. But if anybody remembers that, that dank warehouse with the neon green tube lightings, let us know for sure, because I'm really interested to meet the others who remember that jump point into this matrix. So kiss the one you love right now. You never know when the last time is going to be. Enjoy yourself, because if you're not enjoying life, then you're completely off balance.
Yep.
You got to have both. You got to have the mission and you got to enjoy it. I think that was one of my agreements. It's like, all right, if I'm going back to that godforsaken hellhole inside of that matrix, I'm going to enjoy a big fat freaking steak. I'm going to enjoy sex. I'm going to enjoy the pleasures of that matrix, because it's not bad. It's not all bad. There is some good, but you know, that damn memory wipe, like I said, that's the one that really fucks everything up for everything.
But we have each other, and we have all of you out there.
We do.
I think we're going to succeed this time.
I think so too.
So
love each and every one of you, and we'll see you next Friday, 7 o'clock Pacific, Saturday, 7 o'clock Pacific too. We've been kind of slacking off on the Friday shows.
Yeah, we
need to get back on track and do the Friday shows, but Saturday shows we do more often than not.
Yeah.
So, love you. And we'll see you next time right here on Beyond the Veil.
Happy Winter Solstice and Merry Christmas, you guys.